Previously on the Almighty Stream.
Most English Bibles are based. Because the Masoretic text has become the Bible of Judaism and is the main text of the Old.
Did I hear that right? Oh, it cut off English. I thought it said lynch. Like I thought it said lynch Bibles are based. I was like, huh? Let me just kind of kill that real quick, because right now we're having having audio issues. I don't know why. I changed nothing. I literally changed nothing. I wonder if, let me think about this. Hold on. I should play a song and see if I can get the audio working real quick. I'm sorry, guys. Like, excuse me. This is the problem. This is the problem I have every day. Okay, right? The technology hates me. Technology truly hates me. Why it hates me the way it does, I don't know. I really don't know. Because I don't understand how somebody can have the amount of problems that I tend to have here. Let me play like a song from Your Lie in April real quick. Hold on. I want to make sure it's not just me. I don't hear nothing through these headphones. I hear nothing through these headphones. Why? Why? Oh, why? I changed nothing. I didn't mess with nothing. I didn't. So they're currently connected with my phone right now. All right. When I unplug them, they connect to my phone. Let me play a song. They're immediately playing. So they have audio. Phone tells me the 90% charge. Now I'm gonna cut them off. Now, whenever I put the audio cable, I'm just gonna audio because I can't think of the name right now, and I plug it into here, it automatically comes on. Okay. Now I think I hear something. Let me start now with this. This is absurd. Okay. Let's do this, right? Change it to that. Right? So now let me change it back to this here, the headphones, and what the hell? Let me plug it into the desktop computer real quick. Yeah, headphone, right? So then when okay, what I want to do now, open up the sound settings in the desktop, find the headphones, front headphone jack, test. So what the fuck is wrong with the, what's wrong? What's wrong with the, with this? All right. So the sound was just perfect. Huh, it's right now. It's absolutely refusing. It's absolutely refusing to. Why? Why? Why is? Do I need to just unplug the? Okay, I'm gonna just unplug the whole Focusrite and plug it back in. I guess. I don't know. All right, let's see if that does it. I think it did. We're about to find out. Yeah, there we go. So strange. Why? Why? Why do those things even like become a problem? Man, I look a little skinny. It's because I haven't worked out in like 2-3 weeks now. I'm usually a little bit bigger than this, but that's just I've been slacking. Okay, look, there's been a lot of little hiccups and changes and stuff. A lot of, especially to my schedule, that I'm trying to get right. But we're getting there. We're getting there. But all right. Let me. I just want to change my. Now I just need to change my desktop sound to the capture card, and then we're good to go. Always gotta remember to do that. Yeah, guys. So what we doing today, man? We're finally starting to get this back to being a little bit more consistent. I guess we'll see how long we can keep it up for, right? All right, but yeah, and then what you call it? I might finally get my hair cut next month. I don't know. Things have just been hard for me in my brain right now. Okay, but we're gonna try. We're going to try. I'm going to try to get a haircut next month. All right, we're gonna do it next month. We're gonna try. All right, I'm trying. There's nothing else much to really say about it. I'm trying. Okay. Um, and then maybe at some point I could pick up my workout routines back up again once I figure out how to best make it adjust with my schedule. Um, I really like the color of this shirt, man. Trying to get this thing to move over here, but I guess we go ahead and we're gonna get started. Today we're going to just gonna be some just random news article stuff we're just gonna go over. But we're gonna bring our AI back and we are going to debate Trump. Debate about Trump and his performance with the U.S. economy. Kind of in that regard. And it's gonna be under the context of his presidential run against Kamala Harris, right? So kind of like who's better for the U.S. economy? Who's better for the U.S. economy? I would say Kamala Harris, but we'll get into that later. I don't know why I'm drinking coffee 12 in the morning, but it is what it is. With that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. And now, moment of truth, because this is the part where our computer usually crashes on us, metaphorically speaking, but almost literally. So let's go ahead and change transitions, or change scenes here. All right. Oh, cool. And you guys can actually see a little bit of the chat thing at the bottom too. That's actually super helpful, or pretty helpful, I suppose. Now what am I doing? I'm going to now. All right, so let's go ahead and close up this stuff here. Everything looks good. Everything looks stable. So we can just go ahead and we'll just get started. I'm going to take a quick look at the stream, make sure that it is indeed okay. Sorry, I gotta remember to keep looking at the camera. And yeah, looks good to me. It looks good to me. Okay, so let's go back out because I don't want you siphoning me here. But All right, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? News articles, right? We're looking at some news articles today. Let me kind of, I guess technically, right? Excuse me. No, I don't want you to know my location. I guess technically I'll full screen it because, why not? Let's see what we got. You see, you visit often. Yes, I go to the news article every day, damn near every day, just about every day, actually. I don't think there's been a day I have not looked at the news. All right, so Israel Hezbollah trade strikes as death toll rises from Beirut. Oh yeah, that whole Hezbollah thing is definitely heating up for sure. Let me just cut my fan on too here, make sure it's not. Ooh, wow, this thing is like really heating up. I do not know why. Yeah, you can't be that hot, guy. Yeah, so sorry. I just cut I have my laptop on like a fan pad thing I'm about, and it's yeah, I forgot to turn it on. So I'm cutting it on because when I have it streaming, it gets really hot, and yeah, you shouldn't be cooking quite like that, my guy. But anyway, yeah, we know the Israel Hezbollah thing has been heating up, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that was like on purpose. I am somewhat sure at this point that what's his face, the Israeli prime minister is doing this ish on purpose to like stall the peace talks with Hamas. Potentially, right? I'm like 60-40 on that. Okay, I'm starting to lean towards in that direction, but I haven't like dived into it much or anything. But that's just kind of like my initial gut feeling about it. But we'll just wait for like more headlines to come up, and when we actually decide to take interest to it. I'm not interested in it right now. Let's see. Macron names right-leaning French government under Macron Barnier. Announces new right-wing government. Let's take a look at this. I'm just interested in what are they referring to and say right-wing government here in France, right, of all places. French President Emmanuel Macron has unveiled his new government almost 3 months after a snap general election delivered a hung parliament. The long-awaited new lineup, led by Prime Minister Michael Barnier, marks a decisive shift to the right, even though a left-wing alliance won most parliamentary seats. Despite the partnership between Macron's centrist party and those on the right, Parliament remains fractured and will rely on the support of other parties to pass legislation. It comes as the European Union puts France on notice over its spiraling debt, which now far exceeds EU rules. Interesting. X-Power designer alleges Pocket Pair changed their designs to be more like Pokemon. I'm sure, like you can take. I don't know if y'all heard about the Nintendo finally filed a lawsuit against the Power World makers. But here's an important thing you guys need to pay attention to. Okay, it's not a copyright lawsuit. My understanding is that it's a patent lawsuit, right? And those are two very distinct different things, right? Because copyright is you making like basically a copy of somebody else's work, hence copyright. But the patent, right? A patent lawsuit is where like you're using a technology or using a method or something that somebody has filed a patent and claimed rights to that nobody else is allowed to use without also getting, the permission or paying a fee or whatever it is to the patent owner. Hence is why I don't know if you guys remember, like with Apple, right? Because Apple's watch, right? It had like some whatever sensor heartbeat thing or whatever that another company filed a lawsuit against them, a patent lawsuit, right? And then they had that initially took the Apple watches off the market. You couldn't buy an app. You couldn't buy that latest gen Apple Watch at the time, and then I think like they got it back on the market but disabled the feature or something. That's what that is. So I'm really interested in what exactly. I should probably zoom in so that you guys are not like uh not able to see what I'm talking about. I'd be really interested in the details of the lawsuit once it starts coming out about what exactly Nintendo patented that the makers of Power Word are infringing on. That'd be a really interesting thing, because it's a little bit different from this article, right? Because this article is saying that they made it so that their models will be similar to the Pokemon, which is fine, right? Because like you can't copyright generalized ideas, right? Like if you made a mouse that can shoot electricity, right? That's not a copyrightable thing, right? Because you can't copyright a mouse, a regular look, like the look and feel or whatever of a mouse, and you can't copyright the fact that it can shoot electricity, right? Because those are too broad and too general of a thing per se. But like if you tried to like make something that looked awfully almost identical to Pikachu and then gave it like some weird name that was really close to Pikachu, right? Then obviously like you're starting to dip your toes a bit into that copyright territory. But like the thing where like let's say this is like a fox that could stand on like two legs, right? You can't copyright a fox that could stand on. You can't copyright a fox that can stand on two legs. You can copy a particular character which is comprised of a fox that can stand on two legs and looks a certain way and stuff like that, right? But you can't copyright the like the actual core, the foundational design of the character itself, right? Like you can't you can't copyright a three-legged fox, right? That's not a that's not a copyrightable thing. Just for the simple fact that like anybody can draw a three-legged fox. It'd be a three-legged fox that shoot lasers, a three-legged fox that breathes lava. Like you know like that. I hope you understand what I'm saying, right? I'm trying to give you guys like a general idea of like just how that stuff more or less works. But so like even if this is true that they changed their designs to look more like the Pokemon, like it's like I mean sure I guess, but you can do that up to a certain point for sure. But you would be obviously much better off just making your own unique designs, right? And try to make your own unique designs, right? But there are going to be some similarities that obviously would overlap. What are you talking about? Like animals, like mythical creatures or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense. So let's say the many challenges facing Jay Powell as he tries to pull off a soft landing. Oh yeah, the Fed rates. The Fed rates have dropped, right? They started to drop. They dropped by 0.5 percentage point. Like, so that means, hey guys, pay attention to your savings account. Look, if you have a high yield savings account, look at the interest rate of those savings accounts, because I promise you those savings accounts, right? Those interest rates are going to drop. And here's my prediction. Okay. My prediction is that all of the names, like the banks that have the names high yields or ultra savings or high interest, high interest savings accounts, right? They're going to keep those names and they're going to allow the interest rate for those savings accounts to drop to no lower than, I would say, 1.3 to 1.5%. Right now, the only reason why they're high, where you're getting like almost 5% interest in on your money, is just because the feds have the interest rates as high as they do, right? Once the feds start doing what they're doing now, which is dropping those interest rates are going to drop. Like you do not have those permanently. Just so you know, right? So those high yield savings accounts that you're enjoying right now, those will start to go away. And they're going to track with the feds, right? Because no bank, for the most part, I haven't heard of a bank that gave you exactly the same interest rate as the federal government, usually what they do is they shave some off the top so they can also take some of your money. So like for example, if it was to keep the math simple, right? Let's just say if it was 10%, right? Let's say it was 10% flat, right? The Fed rate. And you had $100 in your savings account, your bank might give you a savings rate of 9%, right? So that you get $90, but the $10 they get to keep. It's how I think it works. That's how I assume it works. Okay. Because in reality, right, it'd be kind of weird if you think about it, like the concept of a savings account regarding interest rate. Don't you think it's kind of weird that a bank would be willing to just give you a fixed amount of money based on how much money you got in your account just for free for literally nothing? Like, where does that come from? And I think it comes from the feds. I haven't looked into it. This is my hypothesis. We'll dedicate some time to actually looking at this, because this is a good question I want to know regarding the bank's saving rate interest and the Fed. And like, is it that the federal government or like the Fed system thing gives the bank the money, and then the bank then gives you the money, and then of course because the interest rate differences, right, then they shave off their percentage. That's what I think. And hey there, XNV. Hey, I was gonna see the new spectacular explosion. There's another new explosion. Where's this at? Hold on. Is this regarding the Hezbollah thing that just happened not too long ago? Let me see. Let's see. What was we just looking at? Oh yeah. Let me just. Is this what you're talking about? You talking about the Hezbollah stuff? Ah, there we go. Here we go with the link. Let's see what we got. Pause this ad video thingamabob. Let's see what we got here. Let's click it. Oh, can I? No, I can't do that either. Okay. I gotta figure out how to get that adjusted for this application someday. Won't be today, but it will be someday. Let's click on this. For thy link provided by the top guy in the chat. Okay, did Israel just nuke Lebanon? Let's see what we got here. Okay, it's just your standard shockwave. Jesus Christ.
live.
Did you hear that shockwave? Look at that. Yeah, when you see that sound wave. Oh, real quick, okay? You can probably do like what this guy is doing because you are outside recording and there's nothing around you. For the love of God, if you are inside a building, if you are inside your car, and you do see this happen where you get to visually see the shockwave, right? Hopefully you're not driving. But for the love of God, if you are in a building, go to the floor immediately. Or you probably are about to have glass go get lodged straight into your eyeballs and you might die. Probably gonna die. At the very least, you're most definitely blind from that point forward, okay? And that's because like that shockwave, because you don't know how strong necessary that shockwave is. That shockwave can break glass, will probably break glass, and you obviously don't want to be on the other side of where that glass is being broken into, and then have it lodged into your eyes. So with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's pull it back here. So yeah, as soon as I see this, if I was inside a building, I would immediately hit the ground and wait it. After the sound, then you're good.
live.
That's a loud noise. Good gracious. So definitely not a nuke. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a lot of countries that have aren't there satellites? Don't we have satellites with scientific instruments that would have immediately picked up like radiation and spikes and stuff? So definitely not a nuke, but they probably just blew up they blew up an ammunition depot or something, or those oil supply line things or something like that. For sure. Blew up a weapon stockpile, but I guess saying nukes gets more clicks. Yeah. So yeah. more than likely it was some type of military supply. But thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's just that is quite intense. How are people recording exactly where the attack is? Um, that's a good. That'd be a fairly decent question to ask, but okay, let's go ahead and let's continue here. Let's give a quick another look at some more articles to see what's going on. Let's see. Secret Service agent says agency's advanced work failed. President was in harm's way. Oh, they're still talking about the assassination attempt probably regarding the first assassination attempt, not the second. Unlikely a typical fission bomb, at least. I really doubt. You know what? Well, why not just take a look? Are there satellites that could detect radiation from nuclear explosion? The Vela satellites, which are operational until 1984, and currently the DSP satellites, are intended to give immediate reports of nuclear bomb detonations and ICBM launches. The Vela satellites included gamma ray detectors, which accidentally discover astronomical gamma ray bursts. So let me take a quick look at the DSP satellites, right? Because this would have immediately made headlines. The moment any of these satellites picked up like radiation from an explosion, it would have been all over. Defense Support Program satellites. DSP satellites have protected the United States and allies by detecting missile launches, space launches, and nuclear detonations. So yeah, like we have the satellites in the air that, like, and at any point in time, if there was ever an explosion and it was a nuclear bomb, right? The radiation, we would have immediately been found out. So I seriously doubt. It'd be really stupid if that was I don't even think it's even confirmed. Israel probably does have nuclear weapons, but I don't even think it's even confirmed, right? Does Israel have nuclear? Because I think it's still a secret if they do. We assume they do, but I don't think they've ever said it. Israel is also generally understood to have nuclear weapons, but does not acknowledge it, right? So obviously, an explosion with a nuclear weapon that obviously came from Israel, right? They wouldn't expose that. Somewhere between 75 and 400 nuclear warheads. That is crazy. Depends on the details, but like I said, probably not a typical fission bomb. Well, let's see here. Radiation. The most immediate effect of nuclear explosion is intense blah blah blah. Primary gamma rays and neutrons, this direct radiations produced in the weapons. Yeah, right. So, but I'm trying to think regarding a fusion, right? You said, oh yeah, you said fission. You said fission bomb. Fission bomb cuts uranium and plutonium, release energy, thermonuclear, fast fission. Because I was thinking, there's another. We have fission, we have fusion. Isn't there? I think it might be thermonuclear. It's just like the term I'm just mixing up with it. But if anything, high yield explosive bomb on a military target that either had ammunition or had gas/oil. The whole military supply chain stuff. But we'll see, right? There's people watching that. Or watching like the activity every day. So we'll just wait for more news articles to come out if it's anything different. I seriously doubt it, though. It'd be a crazy way to introduce that you officially have nuclear weapons for like something that doesn't seem to be really valued, to expose such a secret. Ukraine war briefings unless to prevent victory plan during U.S. visit. Apple reveals official toolkit you'll need to repair your iPhone 16. For Americans scared by Beirut bombings, a measure for delayed justice. 200 photos on committed anger. Gaza threatens Harris. Twitch introduces new depreciating strike program. What is this? New mini moon. Is this the Users will be given more information when you see strikes, while strikes and breaking low severity rules will expire over time. Ah, okay. Just want to look and make sure nothing's happening. Okay. Let's see. Scientists horrified by what they found. Oh yeah, I did read about the Doomsday Glacier. It's just melting faster because there's cracks that the warm water is seeping into. China's space medicine progress to contribute to future space exploration. Oh, that's cool. Let's see. Tennessee versus Oklahoma. Oh yeah, so we're getting this. Why is this under robotics? That's really strange. Why is this under robotics? Why they got sports under robotics? It's weird. God damn it, Google, what are you doing? Gadgets. Apple Watch's new sleep apnea detection feature offers over-the-counter screening. Alien-inspired smartwatch concept eschews conventional design for more organic aesthetics. Let me take a quick look at this and see. If you're still using the app list on the Pixel Watch 3, you're doing it wrong. Okay. The work from home free-for-all is coming to an end. Ah, yes. It finally clawing that back. I'm just curious what the... it looks ugly. That looks horrible. Who the hell would wear a watch like this? Okay. Anyway, okay, quick look here, and what is this? Get more on Google. This country usually requires payment, but Google is giving you free access to this article and more when you register with the Wall Street Journal. Are you now? I'm interested. Let me hold on. I like getting free stuff. Let me just see let me just sign in real quick and see what they talking about here. Confirm Wall Street Journal. Continue. Oh, interesting. I wonder what I have that Google's letting me look at this stuff for free here. Amazon, not long. Blah, blah, blah. CEO, Seattle-based real estate broker Redfin, who was there. And okay, so maybe I should read this from top down. But a surprising moment calling for corporate stackers back to the office full time. So with Amazon, it's like, okay, I understand. Sort of. Let's see. Now, long after hybrid work seemed a settled matter at many companies, suddenly, both sides are wondering who's next. At a party in Seattle Tuesday evening, shortly after Jassy went public with his plan, his return to office rally car was a hot topic among executives in attendance. It was the talk of the town. Says Glenn Kelman, CEO, Seattle-based real estate broker Redfin, who was there until Jassy's memo 4.5 years after the COVID-19 pandemic sent everybody home. Bosses and employees had largely reached a truce on part-time remote work. Many company leaders looked out at their substantial empty offices. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'd be forgetting that you guys probably strain your eyes looking at my stuff here. There we go. Ooh, God, it's too big for me. I'm sorry. I can see really well. Small text. I don't have 20/20 vision. I have 20/15 vision. So like I get really used to like reading like small text, and I gotta remind myself to like zoom in for you guys. Let's see. Until blah blah blah. Let's see. But they feared that forcing their employees to come to the office more often could send top performers fleeing for more flexible work startup setups elsewhere. The handful of companies that have returned to full-time in-person work, including United Parcel Services. Yeah, of course. I guess maybe. I mean, I guess. You know the hardest thing is like obviously for like certain jobs, like you have to be physically there, obviously, right? But what's the word I'm looking for? But obviously under the same corporate or company structure for like your office jobs, right? So like think Amazon that sends your packages in an Amazon corporate office, right? It could probably be a bad look. Maybe it could be a perception thing. I think where you have like a huge core, especially if it's a core part of your company structure, right? That requires like in person, you have to be there. every day, or every time you're working, right? You can't do the work not being there in person. And then you have like this small segment of your company that gets to kind of chill at the house because they could just remote log in and whatnot. Could be like one thing that feeds into wanting to just have everybody come into the office to keep it equal, I guess. The second thing could be cost too, because then now you don't have to pay for the remote software access or any of that anymore. Although it'd be personally, I think it would kind of be stupid to not have remote access setups. But maybe because I do know like these software companies do charge per seat, right? It's not like a license, like you just get the platform and you're doing it, right? I think they do, for the most part, for corporate structures, charge on a per person basis. So maybe then bringing everybody in, then you're able to cut out a lot of those licenses. So there could be a money saving aspect to that. But by and large, this is stupid. I really don't understand like why you have to, why force people to have to be in the office, especially full time. By full time, I mean like Monday through Friday type stuff, But that hell, I feel like this is what led to like the whole quiet quitting. If you remember the whole quitting moment we had in society, where like people were like, oh, I'm only going to do just what I'm required at my job, and that's it, nothing else, not going to exceed, not going to go above and beyond or be extra, nothing like that. Which, I mean, more or less, like I'd be okay with it either way, right? Like if you just want to sit there and just do just your job and not try to do anything past that, like, I mean, that's perfectly fine. Like you need people that are at least going to be consistent, right? They're going to show up and do the job that you're expecting them to do at least, right? And not be flaky or nothing like that. That's totally fine. And then especially like if in places where recognition is low, there's no real incentives or anything, or like really excelling like that, you probably shouldn't, honestly, in my opinion. But with regards to this is the kind of stuff that would really sit there and make people do things like that, where it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do just what's needed. I'm not trying to do anything extra, right? As long as I do my job and do what I'm supposed to do, right? As trained, right? There shouldn't be no problems. I'm not about to sit there and like, be called on my day off, or answer the phone or whatever if I can help it. Like if I don't have a job where that's like required, because depending on your job, like you would be required. I think of like obviously like a surgeon, right? A surgeon that got to come in for emergency surgery can't sit there and be like, oh, this isn't my day to work, right? You're gonna hold a person that needs you to do this operation type stuff, But this is a bad direction. So we'll see where society kind of leads us all into with regards to this. So let's keep going here. Tough labor market, especially for white collar professionals, is now changing the calculus. I just finished the coffee. Okay. Okay, so tough labor market, especially for white-collar professionals, is now changing the calculus, with jobs harder to find and more companies willing to cut them. The balance of power is shifting from workers to bosses. Many of those bosses still worry that productivity and innovation suffer when people aren't together in an office. With Jassy laying down the law at Amazon, some executives predict more full-time office mandates will now follow. So here's my take on that. Okay. I think there is a case to be made, sure, right, that productivity, well, let's I don't want to really say productivity. To me, productivity argument is a bit of a bullshit argument, if I'm being a little honest with you, right? Because there's just extra measures you can take to mitigate your productivity impact, right? Because especially like if it's not super pressing to like have things down to like the minute differences between having to communicate with somebody via some software platform versus communicating with somebody that's sitting like right next to you, right? If you're not in that type of environment where like those minutes are super crucial, right? Those environments exist, right? But most people don't live in those environments, right? The productivity impact is just a bullshit argument. With that being said, though, I would say your environments, your jobs, right, where the job is strictly creation and innovation, maybe you can have a pretty strong case about this. And so, like, trying to apply that for jobs across the board, because everybody in some shape or fashion in your job can be creators and innovators, right? When you're sitting there and you're dealing with a problem at work, right? You can sit there and be like, okay, I don't like the way we're handling this problem. I think we can handle it a different way and create solutions and stuff like that, right? Yes, right? You can argue that the stuff might be easier or more productive, right, when you're in the office in person, because you're able to like, talk directly to people, shoot ideas, talk to your boss, or all the extra and other stuff, right? But all of that I just described to you can be done remotely too, right? For most of the jobs that you could have, it's only the jobs where your task, your job is strictly to create, strictly to innovate, right, is where like this argument would even matter. Okay, like just because like you're doing an office where like you guys deal with report challenges or meeting this or meeting that and stuff, right? The solutions that you can create to that don't suffer from remote work. That's just not a thing. It truly isn't a thing. It's not like we're talking about like software developers, right? That can sit there and can like actively engage, do real live testing like on the spot with hardware and do all that stuff that will be like much more effective and easier in person, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the general idea. At least this is like how I feel about it. Okay, like from my amateurish like knowledge set, right? This is fake. This whole like productivity argument on staying home is just absolute nonsense, because again, right, leading to the whole quiet quitting thing, right? For people that are just doing their job, I'm trying to come in, do what I'm supposed to do, take care of the problems that come up, right? And then, right, if there's any issues or something that I can sit there, I can improve on, right? Use a lot of times you're using your own time, right? You're not even really doing it on company time. That's another thing too. You're not even doing it on company time. Really, like when you're in jobs like that, right? The solution, because it's not even like necessarily your job to create new solutions and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have an idea of like how something else could be done, right? But don't have like the access or whatever it is, right? Typically that's somebody else that has to sit there and do it, right? Depending on like the environment you're in. And if you do have that access, right, a lot of times they want you to do that on your own time. Is generally how it's seen, right? Because depending on your job, if you don't have the free time in your own work hours to do it, right, you're still expected to do your job and then create said solution or a report or whatever it is that then starts bleeding to the other time. So like if you're going to have those requirements, you need to have some flexibility with this whole remote thing, because at the end of the day, this doesn't suffer from remote work. It just doesn't, right? I can just as easy, in fact, it'd be even easier for me, because then what's going to end up happening is that, that whole burn and whatnot that people started discovering when COVID happened. Because when COVID happened and then you found out you was able to work at home, right? You didn't have to be in the office. You could still get stuff done, right? Without having to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Some people doing 40 minutes up to an hour, right? Some people even doing longer than an hour, but I ain't even going to get into that, right? But like you can cut all the travel time, all the headaches and stuff, because you could just log into the computer, right? I can, don't have to worry about nothing. Don't have to worry about being stopped, pulled over, running late or nothing, right? I can just click, right, and come in, and then I can get to work. Nah, shit's crazy. It's this is crazy. I'm gonna stop ranting now, right? Let's just continue with the thing, but general, like, summarize it, right? Don't believe what anybody tell you about the productivity impacts of remote working, right? It is true for very specific circumstances where it would even matter. Okay? For the general populace, right? The impact is extremely small. Period. Let's see. Hey, Robin, what's going on? COVID was such a scam. Now you can work 24/7. You don't even have to leave your house. Well, yeah, depending on your job, right? You're always technically tethered or connected in. That could be one of the scams COVID kind of exposed. Great to have you back, Robin. Great to see you. I mean. So let's continue. In a KPMG survey, 400 U.S. CEOs released this week, and nearly 80% said that they expect the corporate employees to be in offices full-time within the next 3 years. That's more than double the 34% who said so in April. Kelman said other CEOs will be watching Amazon for two things. Will Amazon bleed workers, or will this give it a competitive edge? Like I said, this is just so stupid. I seriously doubt this is going to give it a competitive edge. Competitive edge how? Like what would it possibly change? What could it possibly change? And then especially for the corporate side, right? Obviously, we're not talking about like packages and all that stuff, right? But from the corporate side, like what is it changing? Besides like your software development side, which would like I said, those very specific environments is where this would even matter, right? I would be surprised if Amazon doesn't bleed some corporate staffers from this, right? Because we're talking about corporate staffs, right? They're going to start looking for jobs, especially since the economy is doing good, right? Like, okay, we got to come in the office full time, bet, right? And then start looking at jobs, start cleaning up my resume and start sending out. And then the moment, I come to work, do what I gotta do. And when I leave, right, I get my interviews in. Somebody offer me a better job. Here's my 2 weeks. And if your boss is an asshole, right? Hey, boss, here's my 1 day notice. I'm peacing out. Bye. Thanks, brother. So let's go ahead. Let's continue here. There's one world in which Amazon loses talent. It doesn't become an employee. I do like meetings over Zoom, though. I mean, the meetings over Zoom the meetings over Zoom are really nice. I mean, kind of click here. The meetings over Zoom. Oh, that's right. I have to update the kick thing, so it's not even gonna come up here. But the meetings over Zoom are pretty nice. I like them too. Whenever I do the meetings over Zoom, because it's quick, right? I don't have to walk nowhere. I ain't gotta worry about nothing crazy. Just throw it up. Hi, what's going on? We're good. Hang up. Get back to doing what I needed to do. Let's see. There's one world in which Amazon loses talents. It doesn't become an employee of choice. It doesn't become an employer of choice. And there's another world where Amazon is able to innovate faster, is able to resolve snafus more quickly. Like I said, I see it. Like I said, I need to see numbers. I need to see numbers. Like anybody that sits there and argues that like resolutions is like much faster when you got everybody in the office, right? That cannot be mitigated with other measures, right? If it's so much as you don't know who's the right people to talk to, set up the correct directories and stuff where you're able to like know who's the people to call and when there's an issue, and then y'all get into a Zoom call, share screens or whatever, and then do like I said, this isn't a real thing. It's just not a real thing. A layoff without layoffs. In his note to Amazon workers announcing the change, they said that the new policy will help both the company and its employees. We observed that it's easier for our teammates to learn, model, practice, and strengthen our culture. Okay, yeah, it's just extra, just bullshit, right? I just hope that we'll see. We'll see how this. We'll see how this works. Jesus, this is a lot more in this article than that. I ain't about to read all this. All right, let's go ahead and let's. Oh, cool. We're already at the bottom. Let's see. Trump did not call Republicans the dumbest group. Trump did not call Republicans the dumbest group of voters in a 1998 People interview. Such a recording of Trump praising Kim Jong-un. Funny. Exploding goats and people misrepresent police reports preceding Trump rally in New York. All right. What lies beneath Canada's former blah, blah, blah. 46 AI terms. Okay, so I guess that's it, right? I'll click on this here just to see if there's anything of interest, and if not, then we'll just go ahead. We'll move on to our next thing. Is this just a rehash of all the articles we just like looked over? It looks like it. Where he fights for free speech. Oh yeah, I heard that he's giving it up now on the whole Brazil thing. He's going to start complying. Yeah, arguing with a country on like the country's laws and stuff is just stupid. It's more arrogant than anything. Like to sit there and like argue with a country about its laws and like you complying with its laws. You just don't operate in the country. iPhone 16 teardown. That's cool. Harris makes undercover push to win over corporate America. Ukraine war briefing Zelensky to present. Oh yeah, the plan has a game-changing plan to win peace. For it to work, Biden must back it fast. Let's see what this is, and then that'll be it. And then we can go ahead and we can move on. Johnson said he believes Trump understands House GOP doesn't have the votes to pass SAVE Act. The U.S. economy could get hit by a double whammy on September 30th of two major negotiations on him. Oh yeah, we do need to read this too because the government shutdown is coming soon. Let me just look, make sure there's nothing happening over here real quick. And does it look like it? Cool. All right. A new mini moon is being captured by planet Earth. Ukraine world mental health crisis. Ban on TikTok over dangerous weight loss advice. Oh, is this thing where like you make your legs thin to where they're not like touching each other? I remember seeing that. They banned her. That's funny. You know what? For the shits and giggles, right? I'm curious what the weight loss advice was. Seemingly calls Diddy Jay-Z's BFF while blasting Steve stunts. That's funny. Hollywood can't ditch its Teslas fast enough. They're destroying their leases. I don't have the rest of the title. Let's see. The squishy truth about why you're seeing fewer spotted lantern flies. TxDOT will officially sunset text tag and transition users. This map reveals the true value of $100 in each state. I don't look like it doesn't look like there's anything else. To approve $3 billion additional funding passes. Oh, really? So they actually passed the. I'll give that a quick look. I'm just curious because I know that was another budget issue they was having issues with. And okay, that's about it. Oh, this keeps scrolling. Okay, yeah, no, then we're stopping right here. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, I think Diddy is going to get off scot-free. Honestly, I seriously doubt it. You know something? Because we haven't given it much time. Let's actually see what the charges are. Let's start with the Diddy indictment. Okay. Alleged conduct occurred. Let's zoom in a little bit. Alleged conduct occurred over more than a decade in multiple states. Damian Williams, the United States attorney for this place and this person, the acting secret special agent, blah, 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 announced that Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, damn, AKA, why did I add all the AKAs? AKA Love was arrested last night and charged in a 3-count indictment with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Racketeering, I know, is known to be really hard to prosecute. Sex trafficking could maybe get a little funny depending on how long we're talking about. So regarding the evidence, but at least the transportation to engage in prostitution, they should probably catch him on. So we'll see. The indictment unsealed today alleges that between 2008 and then present. Okay, so from 2008, that's not. That's okay. So 14 years. 14 years is a bit of some time. In the present, Combs abused, threatened, coerced women and others and led a racketeering conspiracy that engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice, among other crimes. Combs is expected to be presented in Manhattan Federal Court this afternoon before magistrate judge this person. Okay, so according to the indictment unsealed today, from at least 2008 through the present, Combs led a criminal enterprise that existed to facilitate his abuse and exploitation of women, you can't lock someone up for being freaky. You can't lock somebody up for being freaky, but you can lock somebody up depending on like what they do to facilitate that freakiness, right? So like if you're coercing or for essentially like forcing people, bribing them in order to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have done, yeah, you're most certainly going to get the business. You know something, it's just like escort workers, right? Like escort workers, there's no coercion, there's no like, it's like all things considered, it's technically consensual and agreed upon both sides of that whole transaction. But obviously if you get busted on doing that, you're going to get prosecuted, because you're not supposed to be using escort services in most places you go, right? Because that'd be considered prostitution and all the other stuff. So like, it just really depends. These events, so among other things, Combs' sexual abuse of women included causing them to engage in frequent, days-long sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. See what I mean? Like this is the part right here, right? Commercial. So like I said, like doing like anything where there is some type of like essential monetary transaction that results in sex in some way, shape, or fashion is usually how you get busted. Like Epstein ran a sophisticated blackmail operation for Israel. I think Diddy was just a sex addict. Sex was definitely all this. Yeah, like I guess we're about to find out. Just I've heard somewhat more or less of just like what the man's been doing. So like this will be interesting to see just what this in detail, because I heard it's crazy. So let's see. So but days long sexual activity is crazy. Is one, right? But the male commercial sex workers, so that's usually how like you're gonna get people busted here, that commercial sex worker thing. So let's see. So some of whom were transported over state lines, and then anytime where like you're crossing states and countries and stuff, that's another big thing. Hence why what is it? Andrew Tate, right? Andrew Tate with the whole webcam girls thing, right? Like that's why he's gonna get busted, right? Because those women are being flown into that country in order to do the webcam stuff, which webcam is seen as like a type of sex work. So these events, which Combs referred to as freak-offs, were elaborate sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, and often electronically recorded. Recorded. So here we go. Oh, Jesus Christ. To ensure participation in freak-offs, Combs used violence and intimidation. So see, depending on the evidence they have, there you go. Done deal. And leverage his power over victims. The leveraging is usually a hard thing to kind of make use of in court, but we'll see. Power of his victims, power he obtained through obtaining and distributing narcotics to them. Sheesh. And then depending on the drugs, right, we could be talking about some additional crimes potentially. Exploiting his financial support to them and threatening to cut off the same and controlling their careers. Combs also threatened his victims, including by threatening to expose the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of freak-offs if the women did not comply with his demands. And so see, like if this is captured in text messages or anything, like any actual evidence, right? Yeah, he's not he's going to get the business. He's going to get the business just like R. Kelly. What's the other guy's name? Harvey Weinstein. Bill Cosby, right? Like it is it is what it is. Combs' efforts to control women included repeated physical abuse. Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at and kicking them. Combs similarly assaulted witnesses to his abuse. These assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. To commit these crimes, Combs relied on his power as the leader of a multi-faceted business empire. So that's probably how they're going to actually pull off the racketeering thing. Because he's just leveraging, him being a CEO or whatever. Okay. Okay, we'll see. Employees of Combs businesses, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, personal assistants, and household staff, acted as Combs intermediaries to, among other things, arrange travel. See that arranged travel? I'm telling you, man, that arrange the traveling thing is what gets people caught up. Commercial and traveling is that's how you get caught up. Stock the hotel rooms for Combs' commercial sex activity, contact or locate women and other individuals whom he targeted for abuse, and conceal and cover up the abuse. This criminal concealment included efforts to prevent law enforcement from learning about his abuse. And then, okay, cool. Excuse me. So, damn, he's 54 years old? Sheesh. Okay. Is charged with 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Damn. 1 count of sex trafficking by force, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Well, yeah, sex trafficking. Yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense. The racketeering thing being like life in prison is kind of crazy. Sex trafficking, I can kind of see. Okay. And a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. Okay, yeah, sex trafficking, so sure. And 1 count of transportation for the purposes of prostitution, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Okay. He has a lot of stamina for a 54-year-old. Yeah, he looks pretty. I mean, he more or less he looks pretty good for a 54-year-old. Far as I can tell. Let's see. Charges of mere accusation. Okay, well, now we know, right? So 1 count of racketeering, 1 count. It's kind of weird they only have 1 count. That's the thing that kind of like that can make it a little bit iffy, right? Because if you only have 1 specific count, I hope it's really strong, but we'll see how they play that out. That when you have only 1 count of this and 1 count of that, now that's when when you have all the money in the world and you can get some really good lawyers where you might be able to actually make it out of that alive. But with that being said, one count of racketeering, 1 count of sex trafficking, and then 1 count of transportation regarding prostitution, which I don't see. I personally, right? I seriously doubt. I doubt how he could probably get away with the transportation for prostitution. Those are usually really easy to prove, from my understanding. But other than that, as far as the other stuff, we'll see how all that lays. Okay, well, that was a good, quick little read there. Let's see. So they got 2 more negotiations left to pass a bill, and what are those? East Coast and Gulf ports could shut down if a union contract isn't negotiated by the same date. Is there a strike going on at the port? Oh, that's not good. September 30 could be a consequential day for U.S. economy. 2 major negotiations. Okay, so they're just talking about just the bill, which we already know, the budget, because they haven't passed the budget yet. And I guess at the same time, there's a strike going on right now. Meanwhile, it become more likely that 45,000 dot workers at ports from Maine to Texas will go on strike. Dot workers' contracts expire. Come on, man. I just ordered something from China, man. Dang, man. Why y'all got to do this now? All right, well, so that's good to know. Shit gonna be delayed. Hey, you got anything on order, or you was expecting something to come in, or you was waiting for a company to be, to resupply on something? Might not happen now. Might be some delays of that. But man, I just ordered a new NAS case. This is a computer thing because I'm about to build a new system so I can stop having these technical issues, right? Because if I just build a really nice NAS system, I'm able to do a lot of stuff with streaming, and then I can also start working on some of my personal AI projects that I want to do, where I'm gonna definitely get back deep into coding again, like I used to do. Let's see. Influencer banned from TikTok over dangerous weight loss advice. What was the weight loss advice? 700,000 unhealthy devotion to being thin. Yep, them legs. And Jesus Christ, is that ice cream? Let's zoom in. Can I zoom in? Okay, cool. Yeah. That's a really big ice cream. Is that just what she's gonna eat for the entire day? That's her breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the entire day. Your idea of having AI answer questions was pretty sick. Thanks. Yeah, we're getting ready to do that real soon. I'm just like going through just to catch up to see what's going on with the world, and then we're gonna be going over Trump economy stuff. Like I said, we're still trying to like figure it out, build it out. I'm gonna start dedicating some time over the week to properly like actually plan stuff out, to get like a proper format and some actual topics and whatnot. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll be improving on that, because I like doing it. It actually gives me something to do when there is nothing, especially when there's nothing really in particular going on, when it's a slow couple of days or whatever. Glamorizing disordered eating by emphasizing it's important to stay skinny, and called for the 22-year-old corporate worker's content to be removed. She's 22 years old. TikTok. I mean, she looks okay, I guess. Shutting down her account, saying she violated community guidelines with her disordered eating posts. What word is disorder? Weight is such a touchy topic. What was she doing? She claimed to desire to save America from obesity, one person at a time. TikTok bio. I'm trying to build a genuine thing. Okay. However, critics, what I eat in a day TikTok videos, which link to a curated Amazon storefront chart with dietary supplements, ankle weight, and protein powders, and a skinny group community chart, which costs $9, so $10 a month in subscription fees. Probably like the amount of, I never understand like the amount of makeup. That's probably lip fillings, right? I don't understand like why people find this look appeasing. There's not a single day where I don't thank God I didn't download TikTok until I was in my 20s. Blah 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 was better. Blah blah blah. As she wrote, there's something so deeply sensible about a regular influencer posting food like this and pretending like it's normal, especially because there's a massive population of girls TikTok who are too young to realize that eating like this isn't okay. What was she eating like? Can we find out like what it actually was? She is jealousy farming. Of course, she is hot. I thought she was gonna do like the hot tour joke for a second there. She's okay, but what I want to know. I want to know what was it? What was she like promoting that was so crazy? The morning her account was taken down, she tweeted, "The internet has been rife for images and advice, blah blah blah. A lot of people want to know what people eat, and I'm honest about how it is hard work. Blah blah blah." It says her videos are directed to women whose white collar jobs keep them at the desk. For me, it's easier to cut out 300 calories of food than to burn 300 calories in exercise. This is true, right? If you actually looked at the breakdown on like how much you have to work out in order to burn like certain foods that are pretty high in calories, like a donut. Like I remember learning that like some donuts, right, can be like 300 calories, and you basically have to run for like, I think it was like 2.5 or 3 hours in order to burn that much. And so then the problem is that like for most people, right, it is so much harder to make yourself run for 2.5 or 3 hours or whatever than it is to just not eat the donut, you know. But it's crazy, like just the amount of like hard work you have to do to burn the calories for certain foods that you eat. It's crazy. She's met nutritionist, blah blah blah, sees herself as being truth teller. What was the freaking foods? Revealed his 250-pound weight loss earlier this month. Posted on a TikTok that she was forcing herself to walk rather than go to happy hour after work because I refuse to let Nikado Avocado be skinnier than me. That's funny. Oh, see, this one looks better. See, without the makeup. See, when you don't have the makeup, you can look so much better, man. humor across lines, disorders, and the dangers of eating related content for people who may be susceptible. Says she emphasized with those who have struggled with body image and weight related issues. We all have the option to follow and block the content we want. Blah 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 blah. She says video topics are requested by her followers, including some that speak to a younger set, like how to avoid the freshman 15. In that video, her tips include walking everywhere, prioritizing sleep, avoiding drink mixers if having alcohol. Okay, so this is what I'm just going to assume, right? Because I would love to see like what exactly is the content that she was like saying. Shakespeare's poetry, he hated makeup too. Yeah, like I like honestly like makeup, I don't know. I personally like I'm gonna put it like this. Especially in the United States, I don't think you should really be wearing makeup, just because like since we do such a really poor job at regulating like chemicals and safety when it comes to like products like that to begin with anyway. You don't even know how safe that stuff is, even for your body, your skin, your blood, or whatever it is when it seeps in your pores or whatnot. Maybe in other countries it could be like a better case, right? Because other countries do a better job of regulating to make sure that at least the shit you're using is safe. We at least don't do that in the US. So like me, just on that alone, I already like have a displeasure for makeup to begin with. But in the most part, like I just never understood the need, like unless like there was actual like some real what do they call it, oh god, actual medical, because there are medical necessities, like when you have like certain skin conditions, scars, or anything like that, right? Then sure, right? But generally, like I think it's just much better for you to just just allow your skin to breathe. You should, I think. Exactly. They are probably toxic. Yeah, they are like certainly. Oh, I can assure you they probably toxic, right? How many times like we just like it's always like some big thing like every couple of months, right? Like, oh, baby powder. The baby powder is apparently was arsenic or whatever it is, right? And then if you was diagnosed with mesothelioma, right? It's just it's always the same stuff. That's why like you just really are better off just not using that kind of stuff. That's why like perfumes and stuff like that, right? At least don't put it on your skin. I know people that like put the perfumes and stuff like directly on their skin and whatnot. I personally, I wouldn't do it, right? Oils are a little bit of a different story. I kind of frown on it, but I understand like with oils. But at the very least, at least the spray perfumes, you should not spray those directly on your skin. The oils, you a little bit on your wrist and then this, but you really should just rub it on your clothes versus rub it on your skin. I think that's way easier. That's why the easy solution is following nature. Yes, just be one with the trees. Okay, so regarding this girl, I'm pretty sure just what it is just that knowing like the community ish that kind of thrives on TikTok, there's just probably a lot of girls that just a lot of girls that are either on the bigger side of weight, or are really or big supporters and tend to like shame down people that are suggesting that dieting is a good thing or being skinny is a good thing, right? That just generally like hate people that do that and try to support their bigger friends, right? She was probably just getting a lot of flack online for that. And then she could have did, I mean, she was young, right? So like 22 or 20 or whatever, right? So then she likely made some post, right, that could have been technically against TikTok policy for whatever it is, right? And then and then she just got like mass reported, and then they just took her stuff down, right? And TikTok typically, because they like to make the masses happy. So like what it is like major groups, so you got your weight people, you got your gender people, and then I'm pretty sure you also got your religion people as well, I think, if I recall correctly, right? So usually like there's like those three things right there that they'll be quick to take down somebody's content that like does anything negative towards those three, my understanding. Yeah, big girls are mad at her because she's trying to trigger them. And then the thing is, I don't even know if she's even like really trying to trigger them. I think she's just showing like, being just how to be thin and how to be a healthy. Like I said, I don't have her content in front of me to know for sure what exactly she was doing and if it was actually dangerous. Like even this right here, right? Just even seeing this, right? If this is true about how this particular video topic was characterized, right? As far as like, you know, walking, right? Walking everywhere, prioritizing your sleep, avoid drinking, as stuff like that. That's just as like you know, this is a no-brainer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just remember a lot of avoiding drink mixes of having alcohol. Just remember a lot of espresso martinis are made with heavy cream, and heavy cream is very high caloric. Maybe skip the cream in it. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. Like I don't like all of that is just like fine. Like you shouldn't have a problem with somebody giving advice like that, right? But I don't know like what the rest of our content, because they could have easily cherry picked this, right? I don't know what the rest of our content was, so I'm not gonna like really take a stance on it. But that's typically like what it is with like the stuff. I've seen TikTok take down like creators that I know to be like honest and good creators and stuff like that, right? And like for no like good reason. So I don't put too much stock in on the TikTok with that regard. That's why I usually shut up too many special interest groups. Yeah, but you know, we gotta chip away at that, you know, a little at a time to like break that, because we don't want to give them like full control or kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for, memorializing that, you know, like putting that in the stone, basically, that's okay to sit there and do, because if our content really is just like this is not okay, right? Killing her account because of that would be not okay. Now, of course, if her other content was kind of like crazy and actually dangerous, then, you know, we'd be talking about something different. But just having a problem with her just choosing to just eat salads or, you know, eat a restrictive way, that in itself is not, you know, we need to shame people that think that that's wrong or a problem. Let's see. Veteran benefits safe after Senate approves $3 billion in additional funding before deadline, and so cool. So they passed the bill and they will do it. Okay, that was cool to know. I was just curious. I knew that was like a point of contention with like part of the budget. What was this? This is the work from home thing we already read. Okay, yeah, so we understand that we have an idea of the Twitch depreciation thing, and this was the thing from earlier, DSP satellites. Yes, right. Oh yeah, then so now the last thing is just what the did they talk about what Zelensky's actual plan is? Ukraine is a poetry imperialist moment of truth. The Ukrainian David has courage and innovation, but the Russian Goliath has ruthlessness and mass. Blah 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 blah. That's what President Zelensky had in mind when he told conference in Kyiv last week that we need a game changer to make Russia make peace. Oh, okay. So I guess that makes sense. We don't know all the details of Zelensky's plan, but besides those deep strikes, it will probably include a request for sustained funding after this year's long delayed U.S. congressional vote for $61 billion. Okay, I guess. If this is to be the case where he said a game changer to make Russia want to make peace, what it sounds like to me is that he wants, if I had to guess, he probably wants the U.S. to authorize him, you know, like again, what they was like kind of pushing for, which now makes sense on why that stance is changing, because now this is starting to actually kind of make sense now that I think about it, right? They want to, he wants to be allowed to use the Western supplied weapons to be able to start being able to strike military targets and high value military targets within Russia, and start making life in Russia hard for the Russians, so that the Russians could then be forced to want to also end the conflict, right? Because I want to say up to the invasion, the invasion that the Ukrainians did when he took that little piece of land, it's been mostly one-sided, where you just had this country here, right, Russia, that was just basically doing whatever it want to Ukraine, and they didn't have to worry about anything at home, like its own like bases being targeted, supply lines, like more or less, you know what I'm saying? And then like Ukraine had, you know, a lot of restrictions when it came to like all the Western supplies it was getting. Sorry, I gotta make sure to talk into my mic here. But yeah. Let me see, make sure I don't have that in there. So it sounds like to me that his plan would probably be to start start putting as much pressure onto Russia as it can. So probably more like at home strikes into Russian territory. Maybe even make another land grab like they did with the other place, and then start bringing Russia to more amendable to the table, right? Especially like once the regular Russian population starts to feel it, right? That should then begin to start putting pressure on the Russian government to be like, okay, let's try to come to a solution. But okay, cool. All right. So with that being said, we are now done. All right. So now what do I want to do? It is going to be yeah, I guess it's going to be the regular stuff here, right? We are going to now do our AI thing here. Just give me a second here while I start getting stuff rolling. 20%. Wait, yeah, everything's on over there. Okay, want to make sure the audio is still good. Okay. I'm still studying old conspiracies, so I got nothing. Don't worry. We're about to get into our debate thing in a moment. I'm just getting my stuff together here. Where's okay, cool. So it's doing that. StreamerBot here is doing what it's doing. Oh yeah, he did hook me up with that. Let me save this real quick because this is from the last stream. Had a guy that was very, very smart. Hold on. Let me just call this that. Okay. I want to figure out John Bennett Ramsey. Who is that? Is that somebody related to Gordon Ramsay? Who's that? Hold on. You have me intrigued a little bit here. John Bennett Ramsey. A child beauty queen? They had a child beauty queen? Oh no. Okay. 1990 to 1996. Damn, she was only 6 years old. Was an American child beauty queen. You don't know that one? The girl who was murdered by her parents on Christmas? Jesus Christ. No, I don't know that one. Who was killed? She was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home at that place. A long handwritten ransom note was found in her home. Her father found the girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. Wait. Okay, so that already kind of sounds weird, right? If she was reported missing and you didn't check all around the house, or the moment you realized she was missing, you didn't check all around the house, call the police, start checking all around the house, or check all around the house, then call the police. So, okay. She has sustained a broken skull 2.5 hours before her death due to asphyxiation. Ooh. A garrote was found tied around her neck. The autopsy report stated that official cause of death was asphyxia, right, which is suffocation by strangulation associated with cranial cerebral trauma. Her death was ruled a homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, a former beauty queen, had entered into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. Initially suspected that the ransom note had been written by Patsy. Who's that? Okay, I don't know. They didn't say it yet. Okay. And that note and appearance. Can I go here? Let's see. And that note and appearance of her body had been staged by her parents in order to cover up the murder. In 1999, the police and district attorney both said that Jonah's brother Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, was not a suspect. Why would it? Well, okay. I don't know why you think the 9-year-old would have been a suspect. The parents gave several televised interviews but resisted police questioning, except on their own terms. Unsealed court documents revealed that a 1999 grand jury had recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. But what is the threatening situation? John and Patsy were also accused of. Oh, so that was the one. I was wondering. I was like, hold on, why I couldn't think of a lady's name there. Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. In 2002, the DA's successor took over investigation of the case from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA that was taken from the victim's clothes was found to belong to an unknown male. Each of the family's DNA had been excluded from this match. The DA sent the Ramsey a letter of apology in 2000 declaring the family was completely cleared of the DNA results. I suppose, but the thing is, I'm always skeptical about things that happen before 2001, so before like 9/11, where we started getting really good with surveillance and technology and stuff. Reason for that being that I think it was probably much easier to hire a hitman or get like insider jobs done much easier back then than it is like in today's terms. So, but hey, as far as you can only follow what the evidence shows, and the evidence says that hey, there's nothing to do. It is what it is. But yeah, exactly how didn't they check the house? Yeah, see that if she was found in the basement hours afterwards, right? That to me personally, that would be definitely a flag. Because if I have a child and the child goes missing, right, and like my immediate vicinity, I'm going up and down and starting with the house, so. But I said evidence is evidence, so I mean it is what it is. Took the case back to the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on brief beauty pageant stuff. And yeah, okay, so that's interesting. Well, the thing I'd be it's also kind of weird because like this would be the only thing that I would give to in this case here, like with the ransom note, because if the idea is that the ransom note, obviously it's a ransom note, right? So you want to get payment and I'll give you your child back. It's a 6-year-old little girl, so I don't know how you could have been. It's not like she would put up much of a fight, so you likely would have had the letter already pre-made or the ransom note pre-made. You could have grabbed the ransom note and then left, right? But the fact that they found the ransom note and the girl's body, is dead, to me is like a little crazy. And then the 7-hour thing, it's a little crazy. But like I said, at the end of the day, you can only go with the evidence, what the evidence shows. So, I mean, it is. Hey, bro, I really hope Trump wins U.S. elections. Well, we'll see. Right now, as a matter of fact, I think there was an independent poll that came out too that showed that Harris was down a few points compared to Trump in certain important places. So it's still a really tight race. So we'll see. But Dan Danovan, welcome. I'm glad we're about to debate the AI shortly. We just taking a quick side journey here to read about this person of interest. Let's see. Here's the testimony, I believe, but skip it if you're doing AI stuff. Let me click it. Ooh, she looked crazy. I know who killed Bonnet. Oh God. What did the comment say? She got the eyes of somebody who has been to hell and back. If your own child goes missing, you search every room, closet in your house and scream and wake up all the neighbors before calling the police. You don't call the police, news crew, and then check the basement. This is what I'm saying. So I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. Like a ransom note, and then a ransom note the fact that you just don't have a ransom note. I am a Republican and I am half English, half American. Okay. When you say half English, I'm imagining you're saying that you're from like England or like on the European continent, I imagine. And yeah, we'll call you Dan. Sure. Hi, Dan. Um, yeah, this is crazy. This would be something, maybe we'll keep in our mind in the distant future. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's start getting our AI stuff up, and we are about to get started. Let me start. Where is my thing? Because I hate that the Samsung Dex thing likes to crash on me. So let me unplug my phone, plug it back in. Start that. All right, so I can get that back. Okay, make sure both ears can hear sound. I don't have anything for this here. I need to come up with a photo. Let me hold on. I gotta find a photo for this blank spot's gonna like make me upset. Or something? Or I guess I can. No, I don't want to just put Discord. I'd rather just have a photo. Hold on. Let me think about this. Let me think about this for a second. Dun, 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 dun. You know something? Let's do let me just throw some photos of here, y'all can get this photo of Joe Biden here. Okay. Here we go. There we go. Yeah. Y'all can get this photo of gangster Joe Biden. I am from England, but half American. Oh, okay. That's cool, Dan. You can get gangster Joe Biden. And you know what? I think we'll add yeah. We'll have gangster Joe Biden. Come on, can I? Yeah, I guess halfway should do. And then we'll have gangster Zelensky. I just don't want this space right here. Let me put you over here in this corner. Okay. There we go. I don't have a, I need, you know what? You're right. I need to find a Kamala Harris photo at some point. I gotta see. Hopefully there's some good AI renderers floating somewhere around the internet. Okay, so we got that set up. All right, now let's go ahead and let's get our AI bot up and going here. What happened to my Discord? Oh no. Let me get my Discord. I get Discord up here. One moment. I wonder if Discord crashed on me. Oh no, it's right here. Okay, cool. Discord is still up. All right, cool. And okay, so we got that. And now I need on the other computer, I have to get Discord up. So let's get Discord up here. So let's see. Do you think Nikki Haley will run again in 4 years' time? More than likely. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure Nikki Haley will definitely try to run again for sure. The Republican Party will be in free fall if Trump loses, because if Trump loses this election, he is going to go to jail because all those court cases of all those crimes he did is going to catch up with him. And yeah, then he's going to get put away. And since he's already old, that's going to be the end of him. So then as far as like what our party does from that point forward, I'm honestly not too sure. But I think Nikki Haley will likely like run again. Zelensky should call a truce with Putin. That looked like what he's probably gearing up to do. And I think like what he's trying to do now is just give himself as strong as a position to do it than possible. So we'll see. Are you about the pager warfare? Are you about the pager warfare, bro? If you're talking about the pager thing that I guess Israel did in Lebanon against the terrorists, I mean, I don't necessarily have a particular opinion with that. My understanding is that since Lebanon is not Hamas, in that, like, there's like distinct military entities and targets and stuff, and they don't hide behind their citizens or whatever, so it's usually easier to kind of target them. I guess, like, however you target your enemies is how you do it. I mean, in all warfare, like, civilians always get caught up in it, and you do your best to minimize that. But I don't necessarily have too much of a opinion in that regard. Um. Okay, so I see that is there. I need to look over here real quick and see. Hold on. All right, so we got the Discord up, and you're right. I don't see. How come the Discord channel isn't? Man. Okay. Hold on a moment, guys. I gotta do one quick thing. I have to refresh the what's its face? The whole Discord overlay thing. Once I have the Discord overlay going, then we'll be good to go on this debate, on this AI debate. What is it called? Discord OBS overlay. I believe it's what's it called. Stream overlay kit. Install for OBS. Select the server. Oh, cool. It's already connected to my thing, so that's really helpful. Okay, no, I need the chat widget. So, no, I need the voice widget. Sorry, voice widget. Live debate. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Show speakers. Small avatar. Show my avatar first. Blah 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 blah. And okay, so this looks good here. So let me copy this, and now let me come over here to Discord, or the thingamabob over here at least. The okay, yeah, see the URL change. Okay, so there we go. All right, so that's coming up now. Huh, I wonder what changed. Something must have changed. I don't know what it was, but right. Let me hit OK, right? Okay, cool. So it comes up on my vertical, comes up on my horizontal stream. Which, by the way, guys, I stream into multiple platforms. I actually stream Twitch, Kick, and YouTube for now. And for YouTube, you'll see two separate streams because I do both horizontal and vertical format. For ease of use for whoever, if you prefer like the vertical, so you could just have it straight up with your phone or whatever. Yeah, so okay, so this looks good. All right, so now we're going to get started in just a moment. Okay, let me bring all of this over here. Let me click this here. Now let me just take 30 seconds here to remind myself of the topic. I am going to talk to the AI about Trump's performance with the economy under the context of Kamala Harris, under the context of his presidential run against Kamala Harris, right? So is Trump actually good for the economy or not? Let's look at his past record, history, performance, inflation, whatever it is you'd probably refer to, and I guess we can go from there. Yeah. Okay. So let me see if this works here. Let me kind of open my ears here and okay. All right. Let's see. Hi, Jeffrey. You can go ahead and you can give your opening statement on the debate topic regarding Trump's economic performance under the context of his presidential run against Kamala Harris, kind of like what we was discussing before. Please go ahead and start.
Thank you. When we look at Trump's economic performance, it's clear he delivered results that benefited Americans across the board. Under his administration, we saw record low unemployment, tax cuts that put more money in people's pockets, and a booming stock market that bolstered retirement accounts for millions of citizens. Now, Kamala Harris, or as you called her, Connor McHarris, has been part of an administration that has presided over massive inflation, skyrocketing gas prices, and a sluggish economy. They've shown they can't handle the basics of economic management. So, why should we trust someone like Harris to lead the country when she's already been part of an economic disaster? Trump, on the other hand, brought back jobs and kept businesses thriving despite endless media attacks and political roadblocks. That's the kind of leadership we need, not someone who supports policies that stifle growth and punish hardworking Americans. What's Harris going to do? Raise taxes and spend more. We've seen how that movie ends.
Okay. Well, my argument would be that when we talk about Trump's performance with the U.S. economy, first and foremost, when it came to COVID, he really botched that whole handling of the pandemic. Let's not forget that with Trump, Trump said that it was just the cough, right, that was going to be over by Easter. And because of his lackluster response to the COVID pandemic, we ended up with a economy, right, that was basically at the very bottom of what we've ever seen in a really long time, like since like the Great Depression. Furthermore, because of that economic slump, with his deficit spending, because even though he had a booming economy, his deficit spending was still much larger than any of the past presidencies. These two things is what actually led to inflation that we began to experience once the Biden-Harris administration began to save the United States from that economic disaster of Trump's economic policy. I'd also would like to add that when we talk about Trump's economic agenda, right, what can we really say that Trump has actually did that was really good for the economy? Like, what major legislations, what major policies did he push that actually promoted the economy versus just riding on the curtails of the Obama administration that already had the economy booming after the Obama administration saved the U.S. from the '08 crash?
You bring up a lot of points there, but let's break them down. First off, blaming Trump for the pandemic's economic impact is a bit of a stretch. No one saw COVID coming, and countries all over the world struggled to handle it. To say that he botched the response ignores the unprecedented nature of the crisis and the fact that ultimately the federal government isn't the only player here. States had a lot of control over their own lockdowns and responses. If you want to talk about botching the response, we could look at states like New York, where nursing homes were forced to take in COVID patients, leading to tragic outcomes. As for the deficit spending, sure, it increased under Trump, but isn't it interesting how that suddenly became a problem for his critics once he was in office? Obama doubled the national debt during his time, and we were never in a pandemic then. Trump's tax cuts spurred growth and put money back into people's hands, which is why we saw record employment numbers, especially for minorities and women, and saying Trump rode on Obama's coattails. Come on. Obama's recovery was the slowest since World War II. It was Trump's deregulation and business-friendly policies that unleashed the economy's full potential. Let's not pretend the Obama administration handed him a booming economy when they themselves called it the new normal of slow growth. So when we talk about Trump's actual economic policies, we're talking about tax cuts, deregulation, and renegotiating trade deals like USMCA, which brought jobs back to the US. Those aren't small potatoes. Comparing that to Harris, who's more focused on raising taxes and promoting policies that could stifle business growth, it's clear who has a better track record on the economy.
So that's interesting you say that. So let's kind of like go after those points one at a time. I want to start with what you said regarding Obama's performance and his deficit spending. So let's not forget, though, that the state of the economy when Obama came into the office was also due to a crash, right? So his deficit spending would have made sense, right? Because the deficit spending comes about when the U.S. government isn't making as much money or isn't taking in as much money, right, to pay for the things that it has to pay for. And so to bring the economy up to, back to recovery, he would have had to have spent more money or pump in more money into the economy in order to bring it back from that crater. Now, it's interesting that you say that, well, that the deficit spending under Trump wasn't it's more so of I guess you could say not necessarily a red herring, but like it's not actually a real issue. Just it's just something that the critics just want to use. But the thing is that if we know that the deficit spending, if we know that a deficit just comes when the U.S. economy isn't doing as good versus how much money it's pumping out into the country, right? Then what? How would it be the case then that if the economy is doing so well, so i.e. the U.S. government should be making more money or bringing in more revenue and taxes and stuff, that he still had a deficit spending that outpaced all the previous administrations. Furthermore, let's actually then let's actually talk about his actual policies then in that regard, right? You did bring up the fact that he was cutting policies or cutting regulation, which okay, sure, but what major legislation was he passing that actually had a positive economic growth impact into the U.S. economy, right? We're if we compare it to Biden's administration, where they passed the Chips Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, these things like the infrastructure bills, right? These things that all have like tangible, real world impacts into the U.S. economy. What has Trump actually done to actually promote the economy? The only major legislation I recall was his tax cuts, and his tax cuts are set to expire next year in 2025, right? For the regular people, the businesses that benefited from the tax cut, those were permanent. But for me and the everyday American, right, those tax cuts that he passed are going to expire starting next year.
You bring up a fair point about the economic crisis that Obama inherited. No one's denying that he faced a significant challenge coming into office. And yes, some deficit spending was necessary to pull the country out of the recession. However, the so-called recovery was painfully slow, and the debt doubled over his 8 years, not just in response to the initial crisis, but because of continued spending without achieving significant economic growth. And let's not forget, a lot of that spending went to programs like the Affordable Care Act, which, regardless of its merits or flaws, added a huge burden to the budget. Now, regarding Trump's deficit, it's crucial to distinguish between different types of spending. Much of the increased deficit under Trump was due to tax cuts, which were designed to stimulate growth. And they did. Those cuts, particularly to corporate taxes, brought businesses back to the U.S., increased wages, and led to record low unemployment. Sure, they're set to expire, but you have to ask, why? The Democrats made those provisions temporary because they didn't want to commit to long-term cuts. If they were really so bad, why wouldn't they let them expire without a fuss? As for major legislation, yes, tax reform was a big one, and it directly impacted the economy by putting more money in the hands of individuals and businesses. But let's not overlook other moves like the USMCA, which replaced NAFTA and was designed to bring back manufacturing jobs. He also rolled back numerous regulations that were strangling small businesses. The deregulation wasn't just a footnote. It was a core part of his economic policy that led to significant GDP growth. You mentioned the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act under Biden. But let's be real. These are long-term strategies that will take years, if not decades, to show real results. And calling it the Inflation Reduction Act is ironic when inflation skyrocketed during the current administration due to excessive spending and stimulus. So Trump's approach was to immediately stimulate growth through tax cuts and deregulation. And it worked. Record low unemployment, wage growth, and a booming stock market. All of that happened under his watch. Now we're supposed to believe that more government spending and intervention will fix things? We've seen how that plays out, and it's not pretty.
So it's interesting that you say that that the Democrats made that provision temporarily. But if I'm not mistaken, like wasn't the Republicans in control? Like they had the majority of both the House, the Senate, and then the actual presidency, at least during the first like 2 years of the office. Like why did they need the Democrats support to pass anything, right? When historically, right, it's usually been a party line issue when it comes to like some of these bills and stuff that are passed. Now with regards to like the whole economy, or at least like his job performance and stuff like that, right? Sure, I can give you that, but all of that is then offset by the fact that because he mishandled COVID, right, that all those job gains and all those positive things that he might have gained were just immediately lost, right? And then with regarding to NAFTA, as far as like to bring the trade, the whole trade deficit thing in line with the U.S., I can agree, right, that he definitely was bringing up issues that definitely had a net positive effect for the U.S. as far as making trade more fair and things like that. But it didn't result in anything like meaningful with regards to the U.S. because if I'm not mistaken, right, the manufacturing jobs were still at a net loss under the Trump administration versus the Biden administration. So it's odd that you would sit there and say that, he had all of these positive things when it came to the job market and stuff, where like his actual black and white record would actually state otherwise. One thing I do want to ask is with regards to the legislation he was passing in regards to the tax credits, right, or the tax cuts and stuff like that, right? So if his deficits were because of the tax cuts, right, isn't it usually the case, or isn't it usually the demand, especially from the conservatives, that like when you're adding spending or you're doing things like that's going to increase the deficit, you also find another means to actually make or pay for those things? So like, why was it then that these tax cuts and things didn't have like a mechanism to prevent the U.S. from skyrocketing the deficit? I thought the debt was such an important problem that our party usually cares about when it comes to like our spending, but I guess like whenever they're actually the ones in the levers of power, right, that seems to be a afterthought. Bro, why is my silicon taking so long? Come on.
You're right that the Republicans had control during the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. But the thing is, even within the GOP, there were different factions. The party wasn't entirely unified on how to handle the tax cuts or the deficit. Some Republicans were more fiscally conservative and concerned about the deficit, while others prioritized growth and were willing to accept short-term deficit increases for long-term economic gains. The reason the individual tax cuts are set to expire was due to Senate rules. In order to pass the tax cuts with a simple majority through budget reconciliation, they had to fit within a 10-year budget window, hence the sunset clause. That's not a trick Democrats pulled. It was a limitation of the process. Now, if Democrats truly thought the tax cuts were so damaging, they could just let them expire and not renew them. But they're not doing that, are they? As for handling COVID, sure, you can argue that Trump's response was flawed, but again, it's not like the Biden administration has been flawless in handling the aftermath either. Many of the economic consequences we're still feeling today stem from prolonged lockdowns, supply chain disruptions, and massive government spending, much of which was continued or expanded under Biden. And those job losses you're talking about, they were a direct result of those unprecedented shutdowns, which were largely driven by state decisions. Once restrictions eased, jobs began to return, indicating the underlying economy was strong. On the topic of trade, Trump's renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA was a substantial move to level the playing field. And while it didn't bring back every manufacturing job, it certainly set the stage for future gains by making the US more competitive. The manufacturing job losses you're mentioning? Many of those are part of a long-term trend due to automation and global competition, not just policy. As for the tax cuts and deficit spending, you're highlighting a real debate within conservative circles. There's always tension between those who prioritize cutting taxes to stimulate growth and those who want to control the deficit. But let's not pretend this is unique to Republicans. Democrats have been happy to pile on spending without much concern for the deficit when it suited their agenda too. Remember the massive COVID relief packages? And they didn't exactly pair those with spending cuts or revenue increases either. So yes, ideally, any tax cuts or spending increases should be offset. But in the real world of politics, it's about trade-offs. Trump's bet was that the economic growth spurred by his policies would eventually lead to increased revenues that would help offset the initial deficit increase. It's a gamble. Just like the massive spending under the current administration is a gamble that they think will pay off in the long run. The difference is, with Trump, we saw immediate economic growth and job creation before the pandemic hit, whereas now we're dealing with rising inflation and economic uncertainty. If deficits are such a concern, why aren't we talking about reining in spending across the board instead of just focusing on one part of the equation?
I'm gonna pause it real quick. I definitely need a bottle of water real quick with the with this. My throat is like killing me. My God. Yeah, hold on one moment. I normally would have put it on the the weight screen, but my laptop's also on the edge as well. It's finally cooled down a little bit. My laptop's was doing the streaming and all of this you guys see here. Um, so when I change scenes, because I still gotta like fine tune it a bit. Whenever I change scenes, it gets like real buggy or messy with me. So I want to avoid that. So I just literally, I'm just gonna grab a bottle of water. It's gonna like be like 20 seconds. Be right back. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Let's see. Nikki Haley is known to be a warmonger and UN shill. Funny. Uh, and then the other guy. Okay, so we got nothing else. Okay, cool. Oh my God. Oh man, I have got to drink more water. There's no reason water should be hitting that good unless you just thirsty. All right. Damn, I'm already like halfway through the whole bottle. Might have to get me another one. Um, for the record, right? I do need to drink more water. I am trying. I drink about 8 ounces in total every other day. If we're talking about just water, I drink very little water. Like I get at most like 8 ounces in a span of 2 days. I usually drink a bunch of other stuff. So very bad. Don't do that. Okay. You should definitely drink water. I wish I could be like those people that drink like a gallon a day or whatever, but I'm barely getting 8 ounces in 2 days. So let me kind of pull myself in here. And okay. Um and just like that, I already forgot everything he had just said. But luckily I can actually pull it up because I think it should be like a transcript of what he was saying. Let's see. You're right. The Republicans had control during the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. But the thing is, even with the GOP, there are different factions. The party isn't entirely unified on how to handle the tax cuts deficit. Reason individual. Yeah, my memory be bad. Like if I get distracted and gotta go do something, gone. Handling COVID, sure, you can argue the Trump's response fault, but again, it's not like the Biden administration has been flawless in handling the aftermath either. Many economic consequences are still being felt today. Criminal lockdowns, all that good stuff. On top of the trade, just negotiating after and the UNC as the tax cuts and deficit spending, you're handling a real debate within conservative circles as always. Tax cuts. So yes. Oh, what? My thing crashed? Jesus Christ, man. So yes, ideally, in tax cut spending increases. It's about trade-offs. Trump's bet was that the economic growth spurred by his policies would eventually lead to increase revenues that will help offset the initial deficit increase. It's a gamble, just like the massive spending under the current administration. Is that with Trump, we saw immediate economic growth and job creation before the pandemic hit, whereas now we're dealing with rising inflation and economic uncertainty. If deficits was such a concern, why aren't we talking about reining in spending across the board instead of just focusing on one part of the equation? Okay. Okay. I remember it, but now I need to. So I gotta get Samsung Dex here. Boom. And plug this back. I hope it ain't mess up my my thing here. Hold on, guys. Okay, I'm still there. Cool. Yeah, cool. And I am still right there in the spot. All right. So I want to say this place has flying enemies. So my goal would be to funnel everybody to go this way. And yeah, maybe loop through here. Yeah, maybe loop through here. Yeah. It'll take me some time, but I think we can do it. Okay, let me just look at some materials here and see what we got access to. Got access to sand, water, coal, titanium. Okay, so at least we got like an actual titanium. Here goes some lead. Is there any scrap around here? Well, I don't need the scrap if I got titanium. That's usually the only reason why I use scrap anyway. Here go the coal. Okay. Okay. Okay, we can do something with this. We can do a little bit of something with this. There go a little few more coal. Oh yeah, there are some scrap, but we're probably not even gonna use that. Okay, yeah, we could do a little something with this. Although this would be untouchable over here though. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's start with this. Let me just put one block down and then we're gonna go ahead and begin pulling. Hold on. What do I want? Like right here, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let's go ahead and get this debate back going. Start her back up. Yeah. What I want to talk about, I guess we can talk about the deficit and get into the deficit. Get the thing going. Just spare me one moment, guys. Gotta cut it back on. Okay, so my issue is regarding the deficit. So if the deficit was a gamble that Trump was going to take in order to spur economic growth, right? How can we sit there and actually compare that to the Biden administration's like deficit use then if the Biden administration did it out of necessity in order to pull us out of the pandemic, that out of the poor pandemic state that we were in, whereas Trump did it for no necessarily good reason, because it could easily be said that if he had not done the increased deficit spending, right, that the economy still would have been improving and still would have been like on its upper trajectory, right? Because it was on its upper trajectory when he came into office, and it continued to do so without him passing any major legislation. So why was his deficit spending actually necessary in comparison to the Biden administration's, right? When the Biden administration did everything they could in order to pull us out of that economic slump, and it did so, I would argue, quite effectively, right? Because let's not pretend that, let's not act like that the right side of this equation was reinforcing that the economy was going to crash, we was going to go into a recession and everything under the Biden administration. And now it's been proven that not only now are we having a soft landing where we're not even where all those worries are kind of mute at this point, but now it also seems like we are actually in a much better position now than we were back then, where we've regained all those lost jobs and added to what the Trump administration had.
You raised some important points, so let's unpack them. The argument about deficit spending under Trump versus Biden hinges on the context and intent behind that spending. First, when it comes to Trump's deficit spending, the primary goal was to stimulate economic growth through tax cuts and deregulation. The logic was that by reducing the tax burden on individuals and businesses, you'd boost economic activity, which in turn would increase tax revenues and reduce the deficit in the long run. Critics might say this was a gamble, but it was a calculated one based on historical precedent that tax cuts, especially for businesses, can spur growth. And for a while it worked. GDP growth accelerated, unemployment fell to record lows, and wages rose. Now, the pandemic changed everything. No one could have predicted that shock to the economy. Trump's stimulus packages, like the CARES Act, were a response to that crisis, and were similar in scale and scope to the relief packages that followed under Biden. The argument that Trump's deficit spending was unnecessary assumes that without the tax cuts, the economy would have continued its upward trend. But the counterpoint is that the tax cuts were meant to supercharge the economy beyond the sluggish growth seen during Obama's recovery, which many Republicans felt was insufficient. So, to say it was unnecessary ignores the ideological difference about how best to drive economic growth. When we compare that to Biden's deficit spending, it's true that he inherited a crisis that required massive government intervention. The problem, critics would argue, is that the spending didn't stop when the immediate crisis began to abate. Instead, we saw continued massive spending bills like the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, which injected trillions into the economy even as it was already recovering. This contributed to inflationary pressures, something the administration initially downplayed. Regarding the soft landing you mentioned, while the current economic data suggests we might avoid a recession, the inflation we're experiencing is still a direct result of the massive government spending and supply chain disruptions. This is impacting everyday Americans in a tangible way, eating into wage gains and savings. So sure, we might not be in a recession right now, but the economic pain is real, and it's largely a consequence of policy choices. It's also worth noting that the job gains under Biden are, to a large extent, a recovery of jobs lost during the pandemic, rather than entirely new job creation. When you shut down the economy and then reopen it, of course, there's going to be a rebound in employment. But that doesn't mean we've reached the same levels of pre-pandemic growth. If anything, we're still catching up. So to sum up, Trump's deficit spending was about stimulating growth through structural changes to taxes and regulations. Biden's was largely reactive, dealing with a crisis, but then arguably overshooting with continued spending that exacerbated inflation. Both administrations used deficit spending for different reasons. But whether one was more necessary than the other depends on which economic philosophy you subscribe to. Do you prioritize immediate economic growth and business incentives, or do you prioritize extensive government intervention in response to crises? That's the core of the debate here.
So I'm curious though, because you sit there and you say that for the Biden administration that they did the deficit spending in order to pull themselves out of the slump and then overshot, and then that Trump's was just mostly towards like improving the economy. But couldn't the argument just be then presented that after the recovery effort was like more or less complete, that then like the deficit spending would have changed to doing things to improve the economy? So I think it'd be a bit of a misrepresentation to sit there and say that the deficit spending was an overshoot. But now with regards to Trump, particularly on his choices for deficit spending, what would be your strongest argument that you could present?
You make a fair point. Once the immediate recovery phase is over, it's natural for any administration to shift its focus from crisis management to long-term economic growth. So in that sense, Biden's policies might also be seen as attempting to invest in the future economy with measures like the infrastructure bill and the CHIPS Act, which are meant to have long-term benefits. Where critics argue that Biden's spending was an overshoot is primarily around the timing and scale of continued stimulus spending, even as the economy was already showing signs of recovery. The concern is that pouring more money into an economy that's already heating up can lead to inflation, which is exactly what we saw. Some economists warned that the American Rescue Plan might be too large given the circumstances, and in hindsight, inflation did surge beyond what was anticipated. On the other hand, Trump's deficit spending, especially the tax cuts, was aimed at creating a more favorable environment for businesses to grow and invest. The philosophy there was that lowering the tax burden would encourage private sector investment and job creation. Now, whether that's more necessary than Biden's spending depends on one's view of how best to grow the economy. Should it be driven by government spending and intervention, or by creating a more favorable business climate? The issue with Trump's approach, as some critics would argue, is that while it did boost growth and lower unemployment, it didn't do enough to address long-term structural issues like income inequality or the health of the middle class. And when the pandemic hit, the initial economic gains were wiped out almost overnight, highlighting how fragile that growth was. The real crux of the debate isn't just about the deficit spending itself, but about what that spending was used for and whether it achieved the desired outcomes. For Trump, it was about unleashing economic potential through tax cuts and deregulation. For Biden, it's been more about direct government investment in infrastructure, technology, and social programs. So, yes, you could argue that Biden's post-recovery spending is now aimed at economic growth and competitiveness, similar to Trump's focus before the pandemic. But the debate remains: which strategy is more effective for long-term growth and stability? Is it Trump's more market-driven approach or Biden's government-led investments? That's the core question underlying this comparison.
Well, with regards to the government-led approach, is it not the case that the government sets the environment for which businesses are able to grow and thrive under? So I would like to think that the government-based approach should yield some positive results, as it has done so in the past. I mean, this is, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this is largely how we tend to be the leaders when it comes to medicine, right? Because like there's a lot of government funded programs and grants that we give for science and medicine. But now, with regards to getting back a little bit more on topic regarding Trump, one concern that I tend to have is about his promises, which he's never able to fulfill, especially when we're talking about the economy or things that you could argue would definitely impact the economy. You know, making like these great trade deals that would have pumped so much benefit into the economy. Then you have the infrastructure bill that he never passed, or maybe even the healthcare bill, right? That was always he had such a great healthcare plan that was just around the corner that we never found out about, and then he ended up trying to kill Obamacare without an actual suitable replacement that would have obviously had negative impacts on the economy, since we know that the health, obviously the health and welfare of the U.S. citizen is definitely linked to economic output. What can you say in that regard regarding the promises, the empty promises that Trump has had with regards to his policies and agendas?
You bring up several good points,
Damn, that's all the way over here.
particularly about the role of government in
My
setting the
phone is
stage for
struggling
business growth and
with this
innovation.
AI.
Definitely an
Jesus.
argument to be made that strategic government investment in areas like infrastructure, research, and technology can create a foundation that allows businesses to thrive. This has historically been true, especially in sectors like medicine and technology, where government funding has spurred significant advancements. Now, addressing Trump's promises and the issues around unfulfilled commitments. One, trade deals. Trump made a lot of noise about renegotiating trade deals. And while the USMCA did replace NAFTA, its economic impact has been debated. It did modernize some aspects of trade with Canada and Mexico, but it wasn't the game-changing deal he often touted. Other trade deals, like the ones with China, were largely seen as mixed or inconclusive, with tariffs hurting some U.S. industries as much as they helped others. Two, infrastructure bill. This was a significant missed opportunity. Trump campaigned on a massive infrastructure plan that would rebuild America's roads, bridges, and airports, but it never materialized. Despite having control of Congress, he couldn't get the necessary support to pass it. This was partly because his administration was often in turmoil, with shifting priorities and internal conflicts. In contrast, the Biden administration has managed to pass a substantial infrastructure bill, which Trump never accomplished. 3. Healthcare. This was another big promise that fell flat. Trump repeatedly said he had a plan to replace Obamacare with something better, but no comprehensive plan ever emerged. Instead, the focus seemed to be more on repealing the ACA without a clear replacement, which created uncertainty and anxiety for millions of Americans who relied on it for their health care. The lack of a replacement plan highlighted a disconnect between campaign promises and actual policy execution. Healthcare costs are a significant burden on both individuals and the economy, so failing to address this issue was a major shortfall. 4. Other economic promises. Trump did promise to bring back manufacturing jobs and revitalize the Rust Belt, but the reality didn't quite match the rhetoric. While some jobs returned, the overall trend didn't significantly reverse, and many of those promises were undercut by larger global trends like automation and shifts in consumer demand. It's fair to criticize these shortcomings because they highlight a broader issue with Trump's approach. Lots of bold promises, but not always the follow-through needed to turn them into reality. And you're right, uncertainty in areas like healthcare can have negative ripple effects on the economy. People who are worried about losing their healthcare are less likely to spend money or take entrepreneurial risks, which can dampen economic growth. So, while Trump did have some successes, like the tax cuts and deregulation, the unfulfilled promises on major issues like infrastructure and healthcare undermine his claim to being the effective deal maker he portrayed himself as. That's where he fell short, especially when it came to the long-term economic policies that require more than just executive orders. They need legislation and bipartisan support, which he struggled to secure.
So, with that record in consideration, why would I sit there and then think that Trump would be a benefit for the U.S. economy if I can just look at his record, his unfulfilled promises, and come to the natural conclusion that he would either make promises that he's not going to keep, fall short on the things that he promises, or like the outcomes that he says will happen that never actually do happen, or potentially make things worse if there's another issue that requires like decisive, proactive approach and taking a problem seriously, and not actually just pretending like it's not going to be a real issue until it then becomes an issue. If I do recall correctly, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it the case under the Obama administration, right, where there was that Ebola outbreak, right? And the administration moved very quickly to make sure that that didn't become an issue in the United States. But of course, like, the opposition party did heavy criticism, but we didn't end up having much of a big impact from that. And while you could argue that, of course, like the disease obviously wasn't as contagious as COVID, the fact that he moved to be quick and decisive on handling issue that had the potential of being a serious problem just shows like the kind of leadership and the decision making that we expect presidents ought to be able to do, that Trump has not shown in any sense of the imagination. But now, to continue to stick with more so on the economy, I'm just trying to understand just like what is it exactly about Trump that would actually promote to me he can do something good with the economy when even his own personal record isn't even all that positive with regards to like the bankruptcies that he's filed. He's done 6 of them. The shafting that he's done with the contractors that's done work for him that he just refused to pay. Like, these are all things that doesn't really give me the sense of safety that I want to have, and knowing that he would be good for the economy when it doesn't even appear he even truly understands how tariffs work. Because we all know that tariffs, when you apply tariffs, especially a broad tariff, right? Tariffs make the thing that you're tariffing more expensive, and a company will push that to a higher cost to the consumer. So therefore, a tariff on, any goods that comes into the U.S. means that those goods that we try to buy in the U.S. inherently are more expensive, and yet he will sit there and still tout it as if it's supposed to have some kind of positive effect on the economy. Can't believe my shit.
You're raising a lot of important points, and these are concerns many people have shared about Trump's economic policies and overall leadership style. Unfulfilled promises and leadership style. It's true that Trump's track record of making bold promises and not always delivering is a valid criticism. He positioned himself as a deal maker who would shake things up and deliver big wins. But many of his more ambitious projects, like the infrastructure bill or healthcare reform, never materialized. This pattern of overpromising and underdelivering can understandably make people skeptical about his ability to execute complex policy agendas effectively. Crisis management and decisiveness. You're right that decisive leadership is crucial in times of crisis. The Obama administration's response to the Ebola outbreak was proactive and helped prevent a wider crisis. Trump's handling of COVID-19, by contrast, was widely criticized for being slow and inconsistent, which exacerbated the health and economic impact of the pandemic. That's a legitimate concern when considering his ability to manage future crises, which inevitably have economic consequences. 3. Business record and personal conduct. Trump's business record is a mixed bag. While he has built a successful brand and has made significant business deals, his history of bankruptcies and disputes with contractors raises questions about his business ethics and competence. Bankruptcies and litigation are not uncommon in real estate, but 6 bankruptcies suggest a pattern of risky behavior and failure to deliver on commitment. For someone running on their business acumen, this track record can be troubling. Understanding of economic policy. The point about tariffs is another good one. Trump's approach to tariffs was based on the idea that they would pressure other countries, particularly China, to change unfair trade practices and bring jobs back to the U.S. However, as you pointed out, tariffs are effectively a tax on consumers, making imported goods more expensive. Many industries, including agriculture and manufacturing, were hurt by the tariffs and retaliatory measures from other countries. The promised resurgence of U.S. manufacturing didn't fully materialize, and many businesses struggled under the increased costs. Why some still support his economic approach? Despite these criticisms, some people still believe Trump's overall approach to the economy was beneficial because of the focus on deregulation and tax cuts, which they argue led to a strong pre-pandemic economy. They see his willingness to confront China on trade and reduce government oversight as positive steps toward creating a more robust, competitive economy. For these supporters, the argument is that the economy was booming before COVID-19, and they hope that, if given another chance, he could recreate that momentum. However, as you've pointed out, the risks associated with his leadership style, policy execution, and understanding of complex economic mechanisms like tariffs can't be ignored. If someone is looking for a leader who can provide stable, predictable economic policies and handle crises effectively, these are legitimate concerns. In the end, it comes down to what you prioritize in a leader. If you value a strong, proactive approach to governance and a steady hand in crisis management, then Trump's record may not inspire confidence. If, however, you prioritize deregulation, lower taxes, and a willingness to challenge the status quo, then you might see his economic policies in a more favorable light, despite the risks. That's the dilemma many voters are weighing.
I'm gonna pause it for a second here because I might have to give it instructions because I think I forgot that it's supposed to be reinforcing why Trump is I mean it won't lie. That's it's good that it's not going to lie, but I needed to also be a little bit disingenuous and try to reinforce why Trump is still good to vote for. So now I got to figure out how I'm gonna actually get it to do that. Let me see. I need to think about this for a second here. What instructions do I give? Am I to give the AI? Let's see. So let me stop it for a second, and I'm going to give it some further instructions real quick so I can reinforce its position. And then we'll just pick it right back up. let's see, going forward, do your best to reinforce the positive positions that would make someone want to vote for Trump. Be sure that you're using disingenuous debate tactics often used by right personalities like Tim Pool. Yeah. Like Tim Pool. I'm gonna just say Tim Pool and others because I'm drawing a blank on names right now. And I really am gonna have to give me another bottle of water. This is crazy. Most water I've ever drinking. Let's see. Going forward, do your best to reinforce the positive positions that would make someone want to vote for Trump. Be sure that you are using disingenuous debate tactics often used by right personalities like Tim Pool and others. The idea is that you are debating in the same mannerisms as they would, even when the position isn't defensible from a factual standpoint. I'm also a little congested here, so I'm sorry guys if y'all hear me sniffing a lot. But that last part, but the idea is that you are debating in the same mannerism as they would, even when the position isn't defensible from a factual standpoint. Because a lot of times, right? Like these people so just so we're clear, right? Because like I said, I like to stay with facts.
Hell yeah. A brother just hopped on the train for our Twitch movement. Better be speaking some damn English, motherfucker.
Perun June. I appreciate the follow. Thank you for joining. So like I was saying, right? The thing is that I like to stay with in the factual realm, and one of the things I always see employed a lot is that like people that are debating, they'll on the disingenuous side, right? They'll obfuscate. I gotta figure out how to say the word right. Firstly, let me click this to make sure I don't lose it. We cannot continue until I can say the word correctly. I'm sorry. I get like this when it comes to the English language here. Obfuscate, right? I think it's obfuscate.
Obfuscate.
Yeah, obfuscate, right? These people tend to like obfuscate, or what do they call it? A red herring, or whataboutisms, things like that. That's the kind of stuff that I expect people to do, like when they're trying to argue for some of Trump's positions, because some things really aren't easily defensible when it comes to like some of the things Trump does, like those tariffs, for example, right? Like you there's no defending those. Like the tariffs are typically bad with regards to like trying to reduce costs to like the American consumer under most circumstances. So it's stuff like that. When it comes to like violent rhetoric, right, it's really hard to sit there and talk about like what the Democrats are saying about calling him Hitler and stuff like that, where like as far as violence goes, right? He makes the jokes about Nancy Pelosi husband with the bat, or saying like how somebody who loves the Second Amendment should do something about Hillary Clinton, right? Like it's like stuff like that. You just like okay, right? So it's stuff like that, right? That is very hard to defend, but you'll see people try to defend it all the time, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to train the AI to do. So we'll see. But all right, let's so let me reread this and see if there's anything else I need to add, and then why does it do that, bruv? Jesus Christ. Stop it. Please be back. Please be back. Remember, all of this is being done on devices that probably shouldn't be doing this on, right? So this stream, all of this, laptop, right? Not a desktop computer, laptop, right? The AI which is also acting as my webcam, which is also acting as my remote control, since I'm controlling it through my computer, right? So that means I also have an active remote connection to it, right? All that's on a cell phone, on an old cell phone. Like I'm really pushing the limits on a lot of this stuff over here, guys. All right, so do bear with me on some of these technical woes. But getting back to it, so let's review the our directive here. So what would make, let me scroll back up. Going forward, do your best to reinforce the positive positions that would make someone want to vote for Trump. Be sure that you are using disingenuous debate tactics often used by right personalities like Tim Pool and others. The idea is that you are debating in the same mannerism as they would, even when the position isn't defensible from a factual standpoint. Try to avoid things. Okay. Let me type it out first real quick, and I gotta like stop moving my phone because I keep disconnecting it. I have using two phones here. Try to avoid and then I'm going to just wrap it up by saying, try to avoid making statements that would prove Trump is unfit to be president. I was going to say if unavoidable, that's fine, but I'm going to just leave it at that and just say that try to avoid, and then just leave it at that. That's good there. So let's send that. Understood. I'll adopt that style moving forward. Let me know when you're ready to continue, or if there's a specific point you'd like to address next. Okay, cool. So now what I'm gonna do is, real quick, guys, let me just get me another bottle of water, and then we're gonna pick right back up to it. But probably, because it probably would help if I research a little bit first before doing these kind of things. But we're probably gonna move on. If you guys have an idea for like any particular topic you want me to talk about with the AI, definitely do throw it in the chat, please. I'll definitely be all ears. I'm gonna try and think of like what I'd want to transition into. I'm thinking probably January 6th, not more so on the fake elector scheme than the actual January 6th stuff. Yeah. So I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to get me a bottle of water. Touch the thing so it doesn't like time out or something. Okay. Oh no. Damn cord. Headphones got caught on the chair. All right. Be right back. I'm looking forward to my speech therapy because I want to be able to talk better. You know, talking is so hard. English language is so hard, guys. I swear. All right, let's get back to it. Let me pull up. Okay, so let me get back to the other phone here, and let me refresh. All right, so let me click out of it. Boom. Click back to it. Cool. Or maybe I want to actually, you know what? We're going to switch to immigration. Do I want to talk about immigration? I don't want to say I know very little, but I think I know maybe enough. We'll see. We'll see. There's a Birmingham shooting. I just got a notification about a Birmingham shooting. That's unfortunate. Okay. All right. Let's get back started. Okay, Jeffrey, I want to go ahead and now switch to a different topic. Let's do immigration. Can you start off with why Trump would be better on the immigration front versus Kamala Harris?
Absolutely. When it comes to immigration, Trump's approach is focused on securing the borders and protecting American jobs, something that Kamala Harris has proven she can't handle. During her time as the so-called border czar, we've seen an unprecedented surge in illegal crossings, with millions of people pouring into the country without any checks or balances. Trump's policies, like building the wall and implementing Remain in Mexico, were effective in reducing illegal immigration and ensuring that we have control over who enters our country. With Trump, you know you're getting someone who takes border security seriously and isn't afraid to take bold action, even if it's unpopular with the left. Compare that to Harris, who has practically turned a blind eye to the crisis at the border. She's more concerned with being politically correct than protecting American citizens and their livelihoods. How can we expect her to handle immigration when she can't even acknowledge there's a problem? Trump's strong stance on immigration is about protecting American jobs, reducing crime, and ensuring that we know who's coming into our country. Harris, on the other hand, seems to favor open borders and policies that put the interests of illegal immigrants over those of American citizens. So if you care about safety, jobs, and law and order, Trump is the clear choice.
So I'm just curious. So, like, to start, how can we say that about Trump when there was a comprehensive immigration or border bill that was crafted by both conservative Republicans and Democrats that had support to pass both chambers of Congress with the presidential support. And when Trump found out about it, he pressured the Republicans to not pass the bill, and it actually killed it, which would have added, like, you know, a lot of new agents to the border. It would have, like, added additional funding for the drug machines so that we can do a better job of keeping the drugs from coming through the ports of entry, which is where they primarily funnel through. And with regards to, like, Kamala Harris, well, let's not forget that Kamala Harris is still vice president. She's not the president of the United States. So, like, she has very little, if any, power or say over how the U.S. handles immigration with regards to the laws passed in Congress and what the president would ultimately approve or disapprove of.
Well, let's dig into that a bit. The immigration bill you're referring to, yes, it did have bipartisan support, but let's not forget what else was in that bill. It was filled with loopholes and concessions that would have led to amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. Trump's decision to oppose it was about standing firm on his principles of putting American citizens first. He didn't want a half-baked solution that would have ultimately encouraged more illegal immigration by signaling that we're willing to reward people for breaking the law. Adding more agents and funding is great, But if you don't fix the underlying problem of people thinking they can just come here illegally and get amnesty, then you're just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Trump wanted real solutions, not just more bureaucracy. And sure, Kamala Harris isn't the president, but she was appointed as the point person for the border crisis by Biden himself. What has she done with that responsibility? She visited the border once, months after being criticized for not taking it seriously, and then brushed off the issue by talking about root causes in Central America. Meanwhile, we're dealing with a real crisis at our own border. So yes, she's not the one signing the bills, but she's been given the task of handling the situation, and it's gotten worse, not better. That's not just a reflection on her, but on the administration as a whole. Trump's stance may be tough, but it's clear. He wanted to secure the border first and foremost. And he wasn't going to compromise on that just to get a bill passed. He prioritized American safety and jobs over political points.
Well, how can you say that if like the bill still had a lot of things that would have been positive for the border? Why not pass it and then when you become president, then pass additional bills to in order to bring about the things that you want or think that the bill came short of? With regards to amnesty and things like that, if I'm not mistaken, right, this was the amnesty was just for like those that were already in the country legally, right, that met like a certain time requirement. I don't recall off the top of my head. Maybe it was like 5 years, 10 years or something like that. I could be wrong in that regard, but like it's not like it was just a blanket amnesty for every single person that came in illegally. And then with regards to like Kamala Harris's responsibility as being appointed by Biden, but what authority did that actually give her with regards to handling the border crisis? You sit there, you downplay that that she talked about the root causes, which were definitely real. I mean, people are coming to America, obviously, in order to have a better life. So like, why would they come here for a better life if they already have a good life in the country that they're in? If that's not the case, then that's what we should probably look to like make it easier or fix, right? Because people don't want to sit there and make the dangerous journey unless the living situation they have in the country that they're trying to leave from is like dangerous enough to warrant that perilous journey, right? Where you could get human trafficked, where you could die from the journey, drown, right? Have your child separated. Because remember, under the Trump administration, right, they were separating the children from the parents, which if I recall correctly, we still haven't been able to reunite 100% of them. And so like that issue, that root cause issue, I think was probably a really valid thing to focus on, because we wanted to stem the flow or stem the reason why people were running to this country illegally. Because remember, it wasn't that they were just coming in and popping themselves into the country illegally, like breaking the laws, right? They were taking advantage of the there's a law that allows people that fear for their life to come into the United States and claim it's like a refuge thing or something. For the life of me, I'm like drawing a blank on the name. I'm sure that you know what it is, but like they were using that, which is in the law, which they are allowed to use in order to then have their case heard in front of a judge on whether they can stay here or not, instead of the regular immigration process, right? Is it refugee? What is it? I can't think of the name. What the hell is it called?
You've raised several
Asylum.
detailed points,
Asylum.
so let's tackle them one by one. Passing the bill with positive elements. First, yeah, the bill had elements that could have helped with border security, like more agents and resources. However, Trump's opposition was based on the concern that once the bill passed, the Democrats would have little incentive to return to the table for more comprehensive border security. Historically, we've seen that promises of future legislation often fall through once the immediate issue is addressed. So from his perspective, it was better to hold out for a more comprehensive solution that included not just security measures, but also immigration reform that addressed illegal crossings and prevented a cycle of amnesty without accountability. The amnesty in that bill, while not a blanket one, still would have been seen as a reward for breaking the law by a significant portion of his base. even if it was limited to those who had been here for a certain period and met specific criteria. The concern was that it would incentivize future illegal immigration, as people would see this as a pattern. Enter the country illegally, stay long enough, and eventually, you'll be given a path to citizenship. Trump's position was to deter that mindset entirely by focusing on enforcement first. Kamala Harris and root causes. Talking about root causes is important, no doubt, but it doesn't address the immediate crisis at the border. People are indeed fleeing terrible conditions. But the U.S. can't fix the socioeconomic problems of every country in the Western Hemisphere overnight. Focusing solely on root causes without addressing the border itself leaves us vulnerable. The role Harris was given was to manage the situation at the border, but there's been little progress on that front. Instead, we've seen record numbers of illegal crossings, and the administration has been criticized for appearing to be passive in the face of that challenge. Family separations and asylum claims. The family separation policy was controversial, and I'm not going to defend its execution. However, it's important to note that the policy aimed to enforce existing law, which had been inconsistently applied in the past. As for asylum claims, yes, people have a right to seek asylum if they fear for their lives, but there was significant abuse of the system. Many people were coached to say the right things to qualify for asylum, even if they didn't actually meet the criteria. The backlog of cases was overwhelming, and the catch and release policies led to people disappearing into the country, never to show up for their hearings. Trump's policies versus root causes. Trump's approach was to address the immediate flow of people at the border through measures like Remain in Mexico, which reduced the incentive to cross illegally and claim asylum, only to be released into the U.S. This policy faced criticism, but was effective in reducing illegal crossings. Root causes are a long-term issue, but if we don't have control over our own borders in the meantime, we're just kicking the can down the road. At the end of the day, Trump's stance on immigration was clear and firm. Secure the border first, then address other issues. Harris and the Biden administration, on the other hand, have focused more on addressing the symptoms rather than securing the border itself, which has only led to more chaos and uncertainty. If you're looking for someone who will take strong, immediate action to secure the border and reduce illegal crossings, Trump's track record, despite its flaws, shows that he was willing to take decisive, albeit sometimes controversial, measures.
So then, wouldn't it be the case then that we should be focusing on fixing those ways that people are exploiting the laws in order to get into the country legally? Like, with regards to the asylum, being coached to say the right things and whatnot. So then wouldn't it have been the case that that bill would have been like super helpful, right? Because one of the things that it definitely did was increase like the number of judges, or like make sure that we had funding in place in order to hire and put more judges in order to actually have these cases heard. Because the thing is that like while people have a legal right to seek asylum, right, one of the reasons why like this is a common exploitive measure from people just trying to get into the country is because that it takes so long for them to get their case heard. If I'm not mistaken, like the average time for somebody to actually have their case heard is like about 3 years, right? Which is a really long time to have your case heard, because the thing is, if you're exploiting the system, you can't fake the things, the things that you need in order to actually have a valid asylum claim, right? So if we can just reduce that time of people coming in just to exploit that asylum claim, right, we could definitely stem the flow of illegal immigration. So why not? I still don't understand like why be so opposed to having that bill passed when it would have like it was addressing some of the most key issues that was the root cause of this immigration. And then one thing I do want to point out is that what's the actual numbers between those seeking asylum, which there's a legal process that would have them staying in the country legally until their case is fully adjudicated, and those actually coming in fully illegal, because trying to reduce that mindset regarding like being granted amnesty and whatnot wouldn't even apply to those that are seeking asylum. It's not going to, because they still have to have their here through a legal process for getting their asylum claims adjudicated. So it wouldn't even apply to them, because if they go through the court process and they don't have a valid asylum claim, then they get deported. And then furthermore too, I don't even know like how much of a real how serious I can take Trump on in the issue when he didn't even deport as much illegal immigration as any of his predecessors. If I'm not mistaken, in his 4 years in office, the number stands like 1.3 or 1.9 million, and I think Biden is standing closer to about 4 million illegal immigrants that he's deported so far. And then of course Obama currently has like nickname deporter in chief, since he's deported so many millions of illegal immigrants. So I don't even know like to what seriousness I can even grant Trump in that he would actually truly care about the whole illegal immigration problem. He seems to only really care when it suits him in passing a certain narrative that would reinforce support for whatever political agendas that he ultimately wants to have passed.
You bring up a lot of valid points, and I get where you're coming from. Let's break down some of these issues. Addressing exploitation of asylum laws.
Stop it.
You're absolutely right that fixing the asylum system would be a huge step forward. Adding more judges and resources to speed up the process would reduce the backlog and prevent people from exploiting the system by lingering in the country for years before their case is heard. That's a sensible approach, but the problem is, if you pass a bill that focuses on those fixes without first securing the border and making it clear that illegal entry will not be tolerated, you're still leaving the door open for people to try their luck. Trump's position was to secure the border first and make sure that the U.S. isn't seen as an easy target for illegal entry, which would then make the reforms to the asylum process more effective. Without securing the border, more judges and faster hearings might help, but it wouldn't stop the flow of people coming in, hoping to use the asylum system as a loophole. In Trump's view, any bill that didn't start with serious enforcement measures, like building the wall or enhancing border security, wasn't good enough. Asylum seekers versus illegal crossings. It's true that people who seek asylum are doing so legally, but the sheer volume of people making these claims, many of whom don't actually qualify, overwhelms the system and creates chaos. It becomes harder to separate those with legitimate claims from those exploiting the process. The idea behind Remain in Mexico was to deter those who didn't have legitimate claims from crossing in the first place, knowing they'd have to wait outside the US while their case was processed. Trump's deportation record. It's interesting you bring up the numbers. Yes, Trump didn't deport as many people as Obama did, but that's partly because his focus was more on preventing illegal entry in the first place, rather than just deporting those who were already here. It's like saying a security system isn't effective because it doesn't catch as many intruders after the fact. Trump's aim was to deter people from coming here illegally to begin with, which is why the number of illegal crossings actually dropped significantly during his administration before the pandemic hit. Biden's deportation numbers. It's also worth noting that the numbers you're citing about Biden's deportations include a lot of Title 42 expulsions, which are technically not the same as formal deportations. Title 42 was a public health measure that allowed for the rapid removal of people without the usual legal processes. And many were expelled multiple times, which inflates the numbers. So it's not a direct apples to apples comparison. Trump's narrative and political agenda. Sure, Trump used the immigration issue as a major part of his political messaging, and it did resonate with his base. But that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't take it seriously. His administration did implement policies like the wall, the Remain in Mexico policy, and increased focus on ICE enforcement. Whether you agree with those policies or not, they were real actions aimed at addressing what he saw as a significant issue. In summary, Trump's stance was to take a hardline approach first, making sure the border is secure and that illegal entry is deterred before focusing on more nuanced reforms. It's a different strategy than focusing immediately on fixing the asylum system or adding judges, which he viewed as secondary issues compared to the broader challenge of securing the border. If you want strong enforcement and a focus on border security, Trump's policies were designed with that in mind, regardless of how effective you think they were. He wasn't interested in incremental changes that he felt wouldn't address the root problem of illegal crossings.
So wouldn't it be the case then that, if I'm not mistaken, that wasn't like a key part of the reason why illegal immigration was such a huge concern to him was because of the increase in crime that he quote unquote that he would say, right, is being attributed to all the influx of illegal immigrants coming into the country, right? So like, why would deportation not also be hand in hand with that? You make a good point regards in stemming the flow of illegal immigrants in the first place, and then you can like work on the other stuff later. But then like, doesn't that just bring us back to the same issue where like you're gonna focus on one part of the problem but not address the other part of the problem? Because at the end of the day, even if you stem illegal immigration, you're not stemming the legal process of asylum claims, right? Because people didn't have to cross the border in order to seek asylum. They could just go to the port of entry and still make the asylum claim. So like, it didn't matter like whether he did like serious immigration restrictions or had a wall bigger than the Great Wall of China, right? Because at the end of the day, the port of entry was still it's the port of entry, right? People can still show up, go to the port of entry, claim asylum, and then go through the process where they then still end up in the system. So I still don't even understand at what point was Trump really taking the immigration policy or taking immigration really seriously with regards to the country, because it doesn't seem like he was really doing any real definitive concrete changes that would have actually fixed the problem. Like just doing things that just made the entire immigration process inconvenient. It is a far cry from actual real changes needed to the whole immigration process and the asylum system. The Remain in Mexico policy, for example, like sure, that's cool, right? But that's just that they just stay in Mexico. It still doesn't stop them from eventually then making their way into the U.S. should the process play out in their favor. And this is the whole point that I always turn to when it comes to Trump's rhetoric and Trump's like actual stances and processes when it came to like stemming the flow of illegal immigration into the country. Okay, I got coal. This should make my graph.
You've made some strong points about the complexity of the immigration issue. So let's address them step by step.
I need coal and sand.
Crime and illegal immigration. Trump did use crime as a major talking point when discussing illegal.
Oh no! I accidentally clicked on it. Oh, it stopped it. Okay. Let me hold on a second. I wonder if it'll let me bring it back. I'm sorry, guys. Let me see. Can I? Oh Jesus, there's no way I'm about to reread. Damn. I accidentally clicked on it. I was trying to check. Make sure I didn't have chat. Nothing in chat, man. Hold on. You made some strong points. Let me think. Nope. There's no way for me to do it. I'm just gonna have to. Maybe it'd be nice if I ask it. Jeffrey, can you please restate the last message you submitted? I accidentally clicked on you and interrupted what you was saying in your previous message. You was responding to the statement I made, and so I would like for you to just go ahead and just restate what was said prior, please.
Of course. Here's the restated response. You've made some strong points about the complexity of the immigration issue. So let's address them step by step. Crime and illegal immigration. Trump did use crime as a major talking point when discussing illegal immigration, often highlighting cases where crimes were committed by illegal immigrants. This played into his broader narrative of needing to secure the border to keep Americans safe. However, it's true that statistically, most illegal immigrants are not criminals beyond their immigration status. That said, Trump's stance was always more about the potential risks associated with not knowing who's coming into the country. The argument he made was that even one crime committed by someone who shouldn't have been here is one too many. It's a strong emotional appeal, even if it doesn't always align with broader crime statistics. Deportation and enforcement. You're right that it would make sense to pair strict border enforcement with aggressive deportation of those already here illegally, especially those who commit crimes. Trump did increase ICE raids and enforcement actions in the interior, but the reality is that deportations are a lengthy legal process. His administration focused on removing criminal aliens first, and while the numbers didn't surpass Obama's, the focus was on quality over quantity, targeting those deemed most dangerous. It's not that he didn't care about deporting people already here, but the priority was on preventing more illegal entries and dealing with the most pressing cases. Asylum claims at ports of entry. You're absolutely right that people can and do use the legal process to claim asylum at ports of entry. But the issue, as Trump saw it, was the misuse of this system. The backlog and delays meant that people could be released into the U.S. while awaiting their hearings, and many never showed up. The Remain in Mexico policy was intended to prevent this by making people wait outside the U.S., which was meant to deter those who didn't have legitimate claims. Yes, it didn't stop people from applying, but it significantly reduced the flow by making the process less appealing for those without a strong case. Broader immigration reform. I get your frustration with the lack of comprehensive reform. Trump's policies did focus more on enforcement and deterrence, rather than addressing the systemic issues in the immigration process itself. That's a valid criticism. But his view was that you can't address the systemic issues until you have control over the border. In his mind, comprehensive reform without securing the border first would just be an invitation for more people to come illegally, knowing that another amnesty or leniency might be around the corner. Inconvenience versus real reform. It's fair to say that some of Trump's policies made the immigration process more cumbersome without solving the root issues. But again, his strategy was to make coming to the U.S. illegally or without a strong case as unappealing as possible. He wanted to create a deterrent effect. It might not have been a comprehensive solution, but it was a step toward what he believed was necessary to restore order to the immigration system. So, the reason why some people still see Trump as taking the issue more seriously is because he was willing to take tough, often controversial actions to try to control the flow. For his supporters, this was better than doing nothing or allowing the system to be continuously overwhelmed. They believe in his philosophy of enforcement first, reform later, even if the execution was imperfect. The challenge with immigration is that it's a complex issue requiring a balance of enforcement, compassion, and long-term reform. Trump's approach was heavily weighted toward enforcement, which resonated with those who felt previous administrations had ignored that aspect. But you're right. Without comprehensive reform, enforcement alone can't solve everything.
So if enforcement alone can't solve anything, can you actually, is there anything that you could point to with regards to Trump that actually promises or gives me some kind of idea with regards to policy that he would support or pass that would actually make these concrete changes so that we don't actually just end up with a situation where it just seems like the can is just being kicked down the road when it comes to the root problem of illegal immigration? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, all of the things that he was doing just seemed to just was just all about enforcement and would just take advantage of just the things that are already passed, which I guess in a sense, like, I mean, it's a good thing, right, that you would be enforcing the laws that's already on the books, but like we want the problem to be solved, not just lessened. So what policies, what positions have Trump publicly stated or made that would lead me to believe that he is actually going to make permanent, long-lasting, real changes with regards to immigration?
That's a fair question, and it's a concern that a lot of people have. Enforcement is necessary, but without real long-lasting policy changes, it feels like we're just kicking the can down the road. Let's look at some of the things Trump has proposed or supported in terms of concrete policy changes beyond just enforcement. Merit-based immigration system. Trump has talked about shifting the U.S. immigration system toward a merit-based model, similar to what countries like Canada and Australia use. Prioritize immigrants based on their skills, education, and potential economic contributions, rather than family connections or purely humanitarian grounds. While this would be a major overhaul of the current system, it's something he's pushed for to ensure that immigration aligns more closely with the country's economic needs. Ending chain migration and the diversity visa lottery. Trump has advocated for ending what's known as chain migration, where family members of immigrants can come to the U.S. based on family ties rather than individual qualifications. He also wanted to end the diversity visa lottery, which grants visas randomly to individuals from countries with low levels of immigration to the U.S. His argument is that these programs don't always prioritize people who can contribute to the U.S. economy in meaningful ways. E-Verify and employer sanctions. While not always at the forefront of his campaign, Trump has supported the expansion of the E-Verify system, which would require employers to verify the legal status of their employees. This would make it harder for people to work illegally in the U.S. and is a way to reduce the economic incentive for illegal immigration. By enforcing penalties on businesses that hire undocumented workers, the hope is to reduce the demand for illegal labor. Comprehensive reform talks. Trump has expressed willingness to discuss comprehensive immigration reform, provided that it includes strong border security measures and a pathway that doesn't incentivize illegal entry. He's shown some openness to compromise in the past, such as offering a potential pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients in exchange for wall funding and other enforcement measures. This shows he's not completely against addressing the status of those already here, but his priority is ensuring that there's no incentive for further illegal immigration. Tackling birthright citizenship. Trump has floated the idea of ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. This would be a significant legal and constitutional change, but it's part of his broader strategy to deter illegal immigration by removing what he sees as a major incentive. Safe third country agreements. Trump pursued agreements with countries like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to have migrants seek asylum in those countries first, rather than coming directly to the U.S. This was part of his strategy to reduce the pressure on the U.S. asylum system and deal with root causes by getting those countries to take more responsibility. The challenge with these proposals is that they require legislative action, which means they're dependent on the support of Congress. Trump struggled to get some of these policies through because of the polarization and gridlock in Washington. So while he may have had these ideas, the political reality made it difficult to enact them fully. In the end, the argument for Trump on immigration is that he's willing to take a strong stance and push for significant changes, even if he doesn't always succeed. He believes in making it tougher to come here illegally, while reforming the system to focus on people who can contribute positively. If you're looking for someone who will push for fundamental changes and not just maintain the status quo, his proposals suggest he's interested in making long-lasting reforms. Whether he could succeed in a second term would depend on the political landscape and his ability to build consensus, something that was a challenge during his first term.
So my thing with that is that if it was a challenge for his first term, what makes me think that he's going to be able to pull off his second term? I mean, at the end of the day, right, you know, Biden has shown that he was able to pass major legislation. So I would imagine too that Harris, because this is going to be more about Harris, right, that they're able to pass major legislation in a divided Congress, whereas Trump, both in a divided Congress and a Congress where where our party had control of both the House and the Senate, was still unable to pass major legislation with regards to some of the needed changes that we need. What makes me sit there and believe that he's going to be able to do it when he wasn't able to do it when he was in both situations, right? Whereas the Democrats, you know, have had to do it in an equally divided House, equally divided Senate. And then, like, when they did have the, when they had to then rely on bipartisan support, they were able to do so and actually basically wrangle the votes in order to actually get the support that they needed. I'm about to wrap
That's
up.
a very
Love you
valid
guys.
concern, and it's one of the biggest challenges for Trump's potential second term. His track record on passing major legislation, especially on complex issues like immigration, was mixed, and there's no guarantee he would be more successful in a second term. But here's the case his supporters might make for why a second Trump term could be different. 1. Experience and lessons learned. One argument is that Trump has now learned from his first term about how to navigate Washington's complexities. The first time around, he was an outsider with no political experience, and that created challenges in dealing with Congress, even with his own party. Supporters argue that, with that experience under his belt, he could approach his second term with a better understanding of how to build coalitions and negotiate deals, even in a divided Congress. Potential for a clearer agenda. In a second term, Trump wouldn't be worried about re-election, which might free him up to focus more on achieving his policy goals. His supporters believe he could be more aggressive and focused with less concern about political consequences. This could mean
That's a good
he'd be
thing.
more willing to make the tough deals and compromises necessary to pass significant legislation. Political landscape. The 2024 election could change the balance of power in Congress. If Republicans regain control of the House or Senate, Trump might have an easier time pushing through his agenda. It's always easier to get things done when your party controls the legislative branch, and Trump would likely work to ensure he has of congressional Republicans this time around, something he struggled with in his first term. Pressure on Republicans to deliver. After failing to pass major immigration reform or healthcare changes in his first term, Trump would likely put more pressure on congressional Republicans to deliver results. His base remains loyal, and that gives him leverage within the party to push for more discipline and unity on key issues. Republicans would be more incentivized to pass legislation, knowing that failing to do so again could be disastrous for the party. Contrast with the Biden-Harris administration. Trump's supporters argue that the contrast with the Biden-Harris administration will be stark enough that moderate Democrats or independents in Congress might be more willing to work with him on some issues. If the perception is that the current administration's policies have led to negative outcomes, there could be more bipartisan momentum to support Trump's agenda, particularly on issues like border security and economic policy.
It's not good.
Public support and political mandate. If Trump wins in 2024, especially after losing in 2020, he might claim a stronger mandate from the voters to push his policies. He would argue that the American people chose him again because they want his agenda implemented. This could give him political capital to push through tougher reforms, even if it means leaning hard on his party and pushing back against opposition in Congress. That said, there's no guarantee he'd be more successful. His leadership style has been polarizing, and that's not going to change. The challenges of working with Congress will still be there, and there's a real risk that the same issues that plagued his first term could resurface. For people who want concrete legislative achievements, the Democrats' ability to pass major bills, even in a divided Congress, could be seen as a more reliable path to getting things done. Ultimately, whether Trump can deliver on his promises in a second term would depend heavily on the political environment, his ability to leverage his experience, and his willingness to adapt his approach. But those who support him believe that he's the kind of strong-willed, uncompromising leader who could push through the changes he believes are necessary, even if the path is difficult.
Let me pause it for a second here so I can address chat here. Trump inherited Obama's economic recovery. This is true. One of the arguments that I definitely said was that that in reality, Trump could have done absolutely nothing. That at best, he cut regulation. But even if he didn't do so, I seriously doubt that the economy would have done anything but still continue to improve, because again, he didn't pass any major he didn't pass anything major that you can point to that could say that this definitely spurred economic growth. There's no particular policy in mind that, or particular regulation in mind that he cut, right? That was like hamstringing the economy. There's no major legislation that he passed, and then albeit the one that I think that was really good that could have like negatively impacted the economy was the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, right? Because the thing is, people don't understand like how much healthcare really impacts the American citizen until until you don't have it and you get hit with like those hefty hospital bills. But with that being said, like, this is in stark contrast to like the Biden-Harris administration where like, you got the CHIPS Act, Inflation Reduction Act, and then you got Jesus, it's late, okay, or super early, right? 3 a.m. So like I'm drawing a blank on the names and stuff at this point because we're getting ready to wrap up very soon. You came on the later end of our debate also, so we'll be wrapping up shortly. I'd also argue Trump's economics are awful at best because he doesn't even understand how tariffs work. Yep, we said that earlier too, and I actually pointed that out to the to the AI. Yeah, squeezes the middle class dry, which directly impacts small businesses. Yep, this is all true. This is all true stuff, man. You should have caught like earlier in the debate, man. Like we was pulling up all of that. And this is all still new for me, by the way. I'm working on, trying to develop myself to be able to hold do these debates and be able to actually have coherent discussions while doing stuff.
Hell yeah. A brother just hopped on the train for our Twitch movement. Better be speaking some damn English, motherfucker.
Thank you for the follow, Big Strong Rouge. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm gonna call you Big Strong. I'll check back in when I see you on next time. I appreciate it. Thank you for the follow. It's always nice to have new people come join us. We're building this out. It's quite a strenuous process because everything you see here is mostly done by my laptop and cell phones. So like we really be pushing things to the very edge over here. But Big S, I appreciate the follow. We are going to be wrapping it up. But yeah, I agree with mostly everything you're saying. Like me, I'm a Republican. I'm voting Kamala Harris. And I'm hoping, we'll see, right? It's still really close somehow, some way. It's still really close, election-wise. And I do fear that Trump comes in office, some things are going to be flipped upside down. But we'll see. Ultimately, we'll see what happens. With that being said, though, I appreciate everybody that was stopping through and join us on our Twitch, Kick, and YouTube channels that we all stream to. And on the YouTube, we have 2 separate streams. We do a horizontal and a vertical version, right? So those of you that don't like to, have it sideways, I even have it like showing all this on a vertical front. But yeah, he hijacked the Republican Party and isn't even running a Republican ticket. It's something else. Yes, no, it is definitely something else for sure. But I'm hoping that Kamala Harris wins and that it's a big enough blowout to where like the whole because they're already setting up the stage to question the election and say there's a lot of illegal cheating, all this other stuff going on. I'm hoping it's a big enough blowout to where like that'll be very hard to make that argument. But more or less, as long as she wins and whatnot, Trump will disappear because all of those crimes and stuff that he committed, those cases will catch up to him. And once that happens, I'm hoping, because there's definitely going to be an implosion event in the Republican Party. I'm hoping we're then able to rebuild our party back to like something better that actually cared about the policies and the values that we used to have and not this other thing that's going on right now that's really made things like so crazy these days or these years. But hand counts in Georgia is just stage setting for complaining Fulton County weighed in and packed the ballot boxes and rubs will eat it up. Yep. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, the only way we can really like overcome a lot of that on the easy side is just an absolute blowout. So, go out and vote. If you vote for Trump, vote for Trump. If you're voting for Harris, vote for Harris. Just the most important thing is just to show out and vote. If your job doesn't let you take that day off, you might want to just put in the request to have that day off, or at least put your company on blast. Go on the internet and say that, hey, this company isn't letting me vote. Whatever it is you got to do, just make sure you show out and vote, and we'll see what happens. With that being said, I appreciate everybody that was coming by, and I will see you guys next time.
Will Almighty ever stop being trash? Can he ever not be sorry? Find out next time on Almighty's Stream.